Every Tuesday night for 6 months, my wife Diana practiced German with an online tutor while I pretended to sleep upstairs. She'd whisper phrases about new beginnings and freedom, thinking she was preparing for our son's school exchange program in Berlin. The truth was simpler, and infinitely worse. She was falling for someone who understood her loneliness perfectly, because he'd spent 3 years studying our family, learning exactly what she needed to hear. The man teaching her to say, "I trust you," in German, was the same person our entire life in Nebraska was designed to hide from. Before we begin, let me know where you're tuning in from down in the comments. And if you enjoy this story, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our next tale. Chapter 1. The black SUV in my rearview mirror shouldn't have been there. October mornings in Lincoln, Nebraska had a rhythm to them, predictable as the corn harvest, steady as my heartbeat. For 10 years, I'd driven this same yellow school bus down these same streets, checking that same mirror at every stop. But this morning, at 6:47 a.m., with frost still clinging to the windshield edges like tiny daggers of ice, that SUV was 3 cars back. Same one I'd spotted yesterday, same tinted windows dark as coffin liner. My name is Clark Wilson. At least that's what everyone in this sleepy Midwest town believes. I'm 42 years old, married to a beautiful woman named Diana, father to 2 teenage boys. I drive a school bus for $35,000 a year, come home to meatloaf on Wednesdays, and mow my lawn every Saturday like clockwork. But Clark Wilson is a ghost, a carefully constructed lie wrapped in suburban normalcy. 10 years ago, I was Michael Torino, and I sat in a federal courthouse in Newark, New Jersey, watching 47 members of my own family stare at me with murder in their eyes. I pulled the bus into the depot, fingers steady on the wheel despite the electricity running through my veins. After a decade of looking over my shoulder, you learn to taste danger before it arrives metallic, like blood in your mouth before the punch lands. "Morning, Clark!" Bobby Hutchinson waved from his own bus, coffee steam curling around his thick fingers. "Cold one today, huh?" "Sure is," I called back, my voice carrying that practiced Nebraska drawl I'd perfected years ago. Michael Torino spoke with Jersey sewage in his vowels. Clark Wilson sounded like cornfields and Friday night football. I walked to my truck, a beaten Ford that had seen better decades, and drove home the long way, taking random turns, doubling back twice. The SUV didn't follow. Maybe I was getting paranoid. Maybe 10 years of waiting for the hammer to drop had finally cracked something loose in my skull. But paranoid men live longer than confident ones when there's $10 million on their head. Our house sat on Maple Street like every other house on Maple Street, 2 stories of beige siding and the American dream, complete with a basketball hoop in the driveway that Arthur had begged for last Christmas. I'd installed hidden cameras in the garden gnomes 6 years ago, motion sensors in the birdhouses, and a panic room behind what looked like a water heater in the basement. Diana didn't know about any of it. Diana, my wife of 9 years who thought she'd married a widower from Ohio. I checked my phone, the real one, not the iPhone Diana knew about. The encrypted device showed feeds from all 12 cameras. Nothing unusual. Mrs. Henderson walking her ancient poodle, the Martinez kids waiting for their bus, and Harold Kim, my 70-year-old neighbor, pretending to check his mail while actually surveying the street with eyes trained by 30 years in the NSA. Harold was my guardian angel in orthopedic shoes and cardigan sweaters. He'd moved in 3 years ago, allegedly retired, allegedly interested in growing tomatoes. But you don't work signals intelligence for 3 decades without recognizing another person living with secrets. We'd never spoken about it directly, but sometimes he'd mention seeing interesting birds in the neighborhood, his code for suspicious vehicles. "No interesting birds this morning," he'd say, and I'd know the street was clear. I entered through the back door, hanging my keys on the hook Diana had labeled Clark in her teacher's handwriting. The coffee was already brewing Diana's one consistent morning contribution, and I could hear her upstairs, probably on her laptop again. "That you, honey?" she called down, voice distracted. "Yeah, just me." Always the same exchange. Like actors who'd been running the same play so long, we'd forgotten we were performing. The truth was, I loved Diana. Loved her in that desperate way you love something you know you'll lose. She was 40 years old, still beautiful with her honey blonde hair and green eyes that crinkled when she really smiled. though those real smiles had gotten rarer lately. When we met at a school fundraiser in 2012, she'd been a young widow herself, or so she claimed. Her husband had died in Afghanistan, she said. No kids from that marriage, starting fresh in Lincoln. We were both liars from the start. I just had better reasons. Barry needs money for that Berlin trip meeting today, she said, coming down the stairs in her counselor's blazer, the navy one that made her look professional and untouchable. The exchange program? My coffee mug stopped halfway to my lips. What exchange program? I told you about this. Mr. Martinez set it up some cultural exchange with a school in Berlin. Barry's been selected. She wasn't looking at me, busy with her phone. Always with that phone lately. Victor Martinez taught German at Lincoln High. Former intelligence, if my instincts were worth anything, something about the way he moved, cataloged faces, noticed things. And now he was sending my son to Berlin? How much? I asked, keeping my voice steady. The initial deposit is $500, then about $1,500 more over the next few months. She finally looked up, and there was something in her eyes I didn't recognize. It's a great opportunity for him, Clark. When's he ever going to get to Europe on a bus driver's salary? The dig landed exactly where she'd aimed it. We'd been having this fight in different variations for 3 years now. Why didn't I have ambition? Why was I satisfied with so little? Other men provided better for their families. If only she knew that other men didn't have the FBI on speed dial and a Glock 19 taped under the kitchen table. I'll think about it, I said. Think fast. The deadline's tomorrow. She grabbed her travel mug, pecked my cheek with lips that felt like an obligation, and headed for the door. I'll be late tonight. Parent conferences. After she left, I stood in my kitchen, Clark Wilson's kitchen, and tried to shake the feeling that my carefully constructed world was developing cracks. Diana staying late had become routine. Her new interest in learning German through some online program. The way she'd been dressing lately, caring about her appearance in a way she hadn't in years. Barry came thundering down the stairs, 17 years old and all angular limbs, his mother's eyes and my old nose, the one I'd had before the surgeons gave me Clark Wilson's face. Dad, did Mom tell you about Berlin? He was excited, practically vibrating. Mr. Martinez says I could stay with a host family, really immerse in the culture. And this Professor Bruce Thompson, he's organizing the whole thing. He teaches at Humboldt University. Bruce Thompson. I filed the name away. Since when are you interested in Germany? I asked. Barry shrugged, that teenage gesture that could mean anything or nothing. Since it's anywhere but here. Come on, Dad. Lincoln's dying. Nothing ever happens here. Nothing ever happens here. That was the point. That was the entire point. Arthur appeared next, 14 and quieter than his brother, always watching, always processing. He had my old habits, checking exits, sitting with his back to walls, noticing things. It worried me sometimes, like trauma could be genetic. Mom was video chatting with someone last night, he said quietly, pouring orange juice. In German, or trying to? Barry shot him a look. Don't be a narc, Art. I'm not narking, just saying. I kept my expression neutral, but inside alarm bells were starting their low hum. Probably for her online class, I said. You boys need lunch money? After they left for school, I did what I'd been doing for 10 years. I became someone else. In the basement, behind a false panel, was my real office. 3 laptops, encrypted phones, and a direct line to U.S. Marshal Lois Brown, the woman who'd been my handler, protector, and occasional therapist for a decade. I pulled up everything I could find on Bruce Thompson, professor at Humboldt University check, published papers on German literature check. But something felt off about his digital footprint. It was too clean, too perfect, like mine. My phone buzzed, the real phone. We need to talk. Lois Brown didn't waste words. Can you get to the usual place? The usual place was a truck stop 20 miles outside Lincoln, the kind where nobody looked twice at 2 people having coffee. Give me an hour, I said. Make it 40 minutes. She hung up. Lois didn't panic, didn't exaggerate, didn't make unnecessary contact. If she wanted to meet, something was wrong. I changed into my alternate clothes jeans and a Huskers cap that made me invisible in Nebraska and took the 3rd car, the one Diana didn't know about, registered to a fictitious cousin. The drive gave me time to think, to catalog the small anomalies that had been accumulating like snow before an avalanche. Diana's restlessness, the German classes, Barry's sudden opportunity, Arthur noticing his mother's secret video calls, that black SUV that shouldn't have been there. 10 years. I'd kept us safe for 10 years. Lois was already there when I arrived, sitting in a back booth nursing black coffee that could strip paint. At 55, she looked like somebody's stern Aunt Gray hair pulled back, reading glasses on a chain, clothes that screamed government employee. But her eyes were sharp as surgical instruments. "There's chatter," she said without preamble. "New Jersey chatter, the kind we don't like." My coffee tasted like ashes. "How much chatter?" "Enough that D.C. is concerned. The old man Don Torino, he's dying. Pancreatic cancer. Weeks, maybe days." I processed this. My uncle, the man who'd raised me after my father's death, taught me the business, brought me into the family's inner circle, the man whose empire I'd destroyed with my testimony. "His son Roberto, he got out 6 months ago," Lois continued. "Model prisoner, served 8 of his 15. Word is he's old school, believes in blood debts." Roberto. We'd grown up together, close as brothers once. He'd been best man at my first wedding, my real wedding. To Angela, who died in the car bombing, meant for me. The bombing that made me realize I had 2 choices: die a criminal or live as someone else. "Roberto's not stupid enough to come after a protected witness," I said, not believing it myself. Lois gave me a look that could freeze blood. "Roberto's been in Europe for 3 months. Germany, specifically." The coffee mug slipped from my hand, shattering on the linoleum floor. The waitress rushed over with towels and apologies, but all I could hear was white noise, the sound of a perfect plan coming apart. "Bruce Thompson," I whispered. Lois nodded. "We're checking, but if your son is being invited to Berlin..." She didn't need to finish. If Roberto had found us, if he was using my own son as bait, then every nightmare I'd had for 10 years was about to come true. "Extract us," I said. "Tonight. Pull us out." "Can't. Not without confirmed threat. You know the rules, we need evidence of imminent danger, not just suspicion." She slid a card across the table. New number. "Anything happens, anything at all, you call, day or night." "What about my family?" "Keep them close. Act normal. We're watching, but Clark." She used my fake name deliberately, reminding me who I had to be. "If this is what we think it is, they're playing a long game. They won't move until your son is in Berlin. That gives us time." Time. I almost laughed. Time was the enemy when you were living a lie. Every day you stayed in one place, roots grew deeper, connections formed, patterns emerged that clever people could track. We'd been in Lincoln too long. I'd known it, felt it, but Diana had been so happy here. The boys had friends, lives, futures that didn't involve looking over their shoulders. I drove home the long way, checking for tails, finding none. Harold was in his garden when I pulled up, and he gave me a small nod, no interesting birds. But as I walked to my door, I caught him looking at me with something like concern, or maybe warning. Inside, the house felt different, violated somehow, though nothing had been touched. I checked the hidden cameras, the motion sensors, the subtle tells I'd left to indicate if drawers had been opened or papers moved. Everything was exactly as I'd left it. So why did it feel like someone had been here? I found it in Barry's room, subtle as a snake in grass, a brochure for the Berlin exchange program, glossy and professional. The contact person was listed as Professor Bruce Thompson, with a photo that could have been anybody middle-aged, pleasant, forgettable. But the email address domain wasn't Humboldt University. It was a private server. My hands shook as I photographed every page with my encrypted phone. This was evidence. This was enough to get us moved. It had to be. My regular phone buzzed. Diana. "Working late again, don't wait up, there's leftover pasta in the fridge." Another buzz, this time an email to my Clark Wilson account. Unknown sender, no subject line. I opened it, my blood turning to ice water in my veins. "Why Geets, Michael? Your boy looks just like you did at that age. Berlin is lovely this time of year. Give my regards to the family. R. Roberto." He'd found us. I sat on Barry's bed, surrounded by posters of bands I didn't recognize, sports trophies from a normal childhood, college brochures for a future that might not exist. 10 years of running, of hiding, of becoming someone else. And it all came down to this email that shouldn't exist from a cousin who wanted me dead. Outside, I heard Arthur's bike hitting the driveway, Barry's laughter as he talked with friends. Normal sounds of a normal life that was about to end. Diana would be home eventually, full of secrets she thought were hers alone, not knowing she might be walking into a trap that used our son as bait. I had two choices. Run now, tonight, tell them everything and pray they'd forgive me. Or play the game a little longer, gather proof, make sure Roberto and whoever was helping him got caught before they could hurt my family. Michael Torino would have run. But Clark Wilson, the man I'd become, the father, the husband he'd stand and fight. Even if it meant fighting on quicksand, even if it meant risking everything I'd built on a foundation of lies. I heard Barry come through the front door, calling out about the Berlin meeting, about how Mr. Martinez had pulled him aside with special news about the program, about how this Professor Thompson had specifically requested him based on his grades in German class. Dad? Barry stood in his doorway, face bright with possibility. You home? I need to talk to you about something amazing. I stood up, slipping the phone with Roberto's email into my pocket, and put on Clark Wilson's smile, the one that said everything was fine, normal, safe. The smile that was the biggest lie of all. Coming, son, I called out, my voice steady as a flatline. Tell me all about it. But as I walked toward my child, toward the conversation that would begin our end, I made myself a promise. Roberto Torino thought he'd found Michael's weakness, but he'd forgotten something crucial. Michael Torino had died 10 years ago, and Clark Wilson? He'd do whatever it took to protect his family, even if it meant becoming someone entirely different, someone dangerous, someone like the man I used to be. Chapter 2. The German words on Diana's lips sounded like a betrayal. I stood in the hallway at 2 a.m., listening to my wife practice pronunciation in our bedroom, her voice soft and careful through the door. Ich liebe dich, she whispered to her laptop screen. Ich vermisse dich. I love you. I miss you. My hand was already on the doorknob when training kicked in. 10 years of martial service protocols screaming in my head. Maintain cover, gather intelligence, don't react emotionally. So instead of bursting in and demanding answers like Clark Wilson, the wounded husband, would, I became Michael Torino, the survivor, and listened. Bruce, I can't talk louder, Diana said, switching to English. No, he's asleep. He's always asleep by 9. The man has no ambition beyond his bus route. A pause. A soft laugh that used to be mine alone. 6 more weeks. Then Barry will be there, and I'll have a reason to visit. Yes, I know we need to be careful. I padded back downstairs, each step calculated to avoid the creaky spots I'd memorized. In the kitchen, I poured myself 3 fingers of Bourbon Clark's drink, not Michael's, and tried to piece together what I knew versus what I feared. What I knew. Diana was having an online affair with Bruce Thompson. Barry was being lured to Berlin. Roberto had made contact. The Marshal Service couldn't act without concrete proof. What I feared. My wife was unknowingly helping my cousin orchestrate my death. The bourbon burned down my throat like liquid regret. How had I missed this? I'd been so focused on external threats, watching for surveillance teams, checking for bombs, maintaining our cover stories, that I'd missed the enemy walking through my front door in designer heels and teacher's blazers. My encrypted phone buzzed. Harold Kim. Interesting bird perched on Elm Street, 3rd night. Elm was 2 blocks over. Close enough to monitor our house with equipment, far enough to avoid casual detection. I texted back, species, black SUV, tinted, Colorado plates, Colorado. Roberto had contacts there from the old drug routes. My hand tightened on the phone until my knuckles went white. The kitchen door opened, and I had half a second to shift from Michael Torino's calculating rage to Clark Wilson's mild concern. Diana stood there in her silk pajamas. When had she started wearing silk? Looking guilty and beautiful and like a stranger. Couldn't sleep? She asked, not meeting my eyes. Barry's Berlin thing has me thinking, I said, taking another sip of bourbon. Seems sudden. She moved to the refrigerator, pulling out wine, another new habit. Victor Martinez has been planning it for months. You'd know that if you ever came to school events. I work, Diana. You drive a bus. The contempt in her voice was sharp enough to draw blood. Other fathers have careers. Other fathers provide. Other fathers. There it was again. The comparison to men who didn't exist. Standards I couldn't meet because meeting them would mean exposing us all. Is this about money? I asked, knowing it wasn't. She laughed, bitter as burned coffee. It's about everything, Clark. We're stuck in this nothing town, in this nothing life. Barry has a chance to see the world, to become something more than... She gestured at me, at our kitchen, at the whole careful construction of our existence. More than his father? Her silence was answer enough. I wanted to tell her then. Wanted to grab her shoulders and scream that I'd given up everything, my name, my family, my identity to keep us safe. That the nothing life she hated was the only thing standing between our children and a shallow grave. That every day I didn't run was an act of love she'd never understand. Instead, I said, I'll think about the money. She nodded, refilling her wine glass. Victor sent over some information about the professor running the program, Bruce Thompson. He seems a wonderful published author, speaks 5 languages. He's even offering to personally mentor Barry. How generous, I managed, the words like glass in my throat. Some people, Diana said, heading back upstairs with her wine, actually want to help others succeed. After she left, I sat in the dark kitchen and planned. If Roberto was using Bruce Thompson as cover, he was playing a sophisticated game. But sophisticated had always been Roberto's weakness. He overthought things, added unnecessary complications. Michael Torino had known how to exploit that. Maybe Clark Wilson could too. At 6 a.m., I knocked on Harold Kim's door. He answered fully dressed, alert, like he'd been waiting. Coffee? He offered, but his eyes were asking different questions. Please. His house was a mirror of mine, same layout, different life. Where I had family photos, carefully edited to remove any Jersey references, Harold had commendations, awards, photos with people whose faces were blurred. The coffee was strong enough to wake the dead. The interesting bird, I said carefully. How long has it been visiting? 3 nights that I've noticed. Parks for exactly 2 hours between 2 and 4 a.m. Professional pattern short enough to avoid suspicion, long enough to collect data. He studied me over his mug. You expecting migration season? Migration season. Moving. Running. Maybe. Depends on the weather. Harold nodded slowly. Weather's been unpredictable lately. Your boy still planning that trip? His mother's keen on it. Mothers usually know best. He paused. Unless they don't have all the information. We looked at each other. 2 men speaking in code about things that could get people killed. If the weather turns bad, Harold said finally, I know some people who specialize in emergency evacuations. Old colleagues who remember favors. Good to know. I left his house feeling marginally less alone. Harold Kim might not know my whole story, but he recognized a man in hiding. And he was offering help, the kind that came without questions. At school, I made an excuse to Diana about checking on a sick colleague and drove to Lincoln High. Victor Martinez was in his classroom grading papers with the kind of focus that suggested he knew I was coming. Mr. Wilson, he said without looking up, hear about Barry's opportunity? Something like that. He set down his pen, and for the first time, I saw what I'd suspected intelligence operative eyes in a teacher's face. Not American intelligence, though. The accent he'd never quite shaken, the way he held himself European, German, if I had to guess. BND, possibly, or something darker. Your son is exceptional, Victor said carefully. Languages come naturally to him. He could have a future in international relations. With Professor Thompson's help, Victor's eye twitched so subtle most would miss it. You've researched the professor? I research anyone who wants to take my son to another continent. Prudent. Victor moved to his filing cabinet, pulled out a folder. Perhaps this will ease your concerns. The folder contained Bruce Thompson's academic credentials, publications, references. All of it would check out, I was sure. Roberto would have made certain. But Victor had paperclipped something extra to the back of photo, grainy but clear enough. Bruce Thompson at a cafe in Berlin. And in the background, partially obscured but unmistakable to someone who'd known him since childhood, Roberto Torino. Victor watched my face carefully. Interesting company for an academic, wouldn't you say? My heart hammered against my ribs. When was this taken? 6 weeks ago. I have. Friends in Berlin. Old colleagues who notice things. He leaned forward. Mr. Wilson, or whatever your name really is, your son should not go to Berlin. The smart move was to deny, deflect, maintain cover. But something in Victor's eyes, some shared recognition of the danger we were discussing, made me take a different path. My wife is very enthusiastic about the program, I said carefully. Yes, I imagine she is. She and Professor Thompson have been corresponding for months. She practices her German with him every Tuesday and Thursday night. He pulled out another photo, Diana at her school computer, video chatting with someone off-screen. She shared quite a bit about your family, your routines, your habits, your son's schedule. The room spun. Diana wasn't just having an affair. She was inadvertently providing intelligence to someone hunting us. Why are you showing me this? I asked. Victor closed the folder, his expression grave. Because 25 years ago, I was stationed in Berlin when the wall fell. I saw families torn apart by secrets, destroyed by the very people trying to protect them. And because he hesitated, then continued, because I recognized the look of a man with a price on his head. I had one myself once, different circumstances, but the fear is the same. What do you want? Nothing. But if you need help, if things become complicated, you should know you have allies. He wrote something on a piece of paper, slid it across. This email address is secure. Use it if you need to. I memorized the address, then watched him burn the paper in a small metal trash can. Professional, careful, like me. One more thing, Victor said as I stood to leave. Your wife withdrew $15,000 from your joint account yesterday. The bank can confirm she said it was for roof repairs. $15,000. Enough for plane tickets, fake documents, bribes. Enough to get Barry to Berlin and into Roberto's hands. I drove back to the bus depot on autopilot, my mind racing through contingencies. I needed to contact Lois, needed to get my family into protective custody, needed to my regular phone rang. Diana. Clark, wonderful news. Professor Thompson just called the school. He's so impressed with Barry's application that he's offering a full scholarship for the exchange. All we need to cover is the airfare. Isn't that amazing? Amazing, I echoed, pulling into the depot parking lot. He wants to video chat with us tonight, the whole family, 8 p.m., to discuss the details. Video chat. Roberto wanted to see my face, wanted to confirm he had the right Michael Torino after all these years. I'll be there, I said. Try to look presentable. And Clark? Try to be enthusiastic. This is important to Barry. She hung up, and I sat in my truck, engine running, watching school buses come and go like yellow whales in an asphalt ocean. Normal people living normal lives, never knowing that 3 blocks away, a man was deciding whether to run and destroy his family or stay and possibly die. My encrypted phone buzzed. Lois. Urgent. Check your email. I pulled up the secure account on my tablet. The email contained a single attachment, an FBI surveillance photo from Newark Airport, dated yesterday. Roberto Torino, boarding a flight to Denver. Denver to Lincoln was a 4-hour drive. The email had one line of text. Extraction authorized, tonight, 11 p.m. Be ready. Be ready. How did you prepare your family to lose everything in 3 hours? How did you explain to your teenage sons that their father was a ghost, their life was a lie, and they were about to disappear? How did you look at your wife, even a cheating wife, and tell her she'd been sleeping next to a stranger for 9 years? You didn't. You lied one more time. I called Diana back. Hey, about tonight, why don't we go out for dinner first? Celebrate Barry's opportunity. That Italian place you like? Really? She sounded surprised, maybe even pleased. That's sweet, Clark. Family's important, I said, meaning it in ways she'd never understand. We should be together. Okay, yes, let's do 6 p.m. for dinner, then home for the video call. Perfect. Perfect. In 5 hours, we'd have our last meal as the Wilson family. In 7 hours, Roberto would call an empty house. In 8 hours, we'd be in a Marshall convoy headed for a new life. New names, new lies. Unless something went wrong. In my experience, something always went wrong. I spent the rest of the day doing normal Clark Wilson things, driving my afternoon route, joking with the kids, filling out paperwork. But Michael Torino was underneath, preparing. I stopped at an ATM, pulled out the maximum cash, filled up the truck's gas tank, bought 3 burner phones from 3 different stores. At home, I found Barry in his room packing for a trip he'd never take. "Dad, did Mom tell you? Full scholarship. Mr. Martinez says Professor Thompson hardly ever does this." My son's face was bright with dreams I was about to shatter. "That's great, buddy." "I know you worry about money," he said, suddenly serious. "I hear you and Mom fighting about it. But this won't cost much, and when I get back, I'll have such an advantage for college applications. Maybe I can even get a full ride somewhere, save you guys the tuition." He was trying to take care of us, this kid who didn't know his real last name. "Barry, I promise I'll be safe, Dad. I know the world's dangerous. You've taught us that. But I can't live scared forever, you know? Live scared forever. If only he knew that's exactly what we'd been doing." "I know, son, I know." Arthur appeared in the doorway, quiet as always, those watchful eyes that saw too much. "Mom's acting weird," he announced. "She's all dressed up for dinner." Like really dressed up. I looked closer at my younger son, saw the worry hidden under teenage nonchalance. "What else have you noticed?" Arthur glanced at Barry, then back at me. "That video call tonight, she set up her laptop in the living room with special lighting, like she's trying to impress someone, or like she was being coached on how to properly display our family for identification purposes." "Dad," Arthur said quietly, "is everything okay? Like really okay?" I wanted to lie. God, how I wanted to lie. But in 5 hours, these boys' world would implode, and they deserved something real from their father. "Stay close to me tonight," I said. "Both of you. Whatever happens, stay close." Barry laughed, but it was nervous. "You're being weird, Dad." "Promise me." They exchanged glances, and for a moment, I saw them as they really were, not the Wilson boys, but Torino blood, survivors of a legacy they didn't know existed. They'd inherited more than my old nose and Diana's eyes. They'd inherited the ability to sense danger. "We promise," Arthur said solemnly. At 5:45 p.m., Diana came downstairs in a black dress I'd never seen before, hair done, makeup perfect. She looked like she was going on a first date, not dinner with her husband of 9 years and 2 teenage sons. "You look nice," I said, and meant it. Despite everything, the lies, the betrayal, the danger she didn't know she was courting, she was still beautiful. Still the woman I'd fallen for in this made-up life. "Bruce says," she caught herself. "I mean, I read that you should always look your best. You never know who you might meet," Bruce says. She wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. Harold Kim was in his yard as we pulled out, and he gave me a long look. I nodded slightly, message received. He'd be watching. The Italian restaurant was crowded, loud, perfect for a last supper no one knew was happening. Diana ordered wine, the boys got sodas, and I had water because I needed a clear head for what was coming. "A toast," Diana said, raising her glass. "To Barry's adventure." "To family," I countered, and watched her flinch. We ate pasta and breadsticks while my phone counted down our remaining time. 6:30, 7 o'clock, 7:15. Roberto would be moving into position soon if he wasn't already there. "Tell us about this professor," I said casually. Diana's eyes lit up in a way that twisted my gut. "He's brilliant. Speaks 5 languages fluently. Published 3 books on German literature. He's everything," she stopped. "Everything I'm not?" The boys shifted uncomfortably. Barry muttered, "Here we go. That's not what I was going to say." "It's what you meant." Diana set down her wine glass hard enough to slosh. "You know what, Clark? Yes. He's cultured and intelligent and ambitious. He makes me feel like I'm more than just a guidance counselor in nowhere, Nebraska. Is that what you want to hear?" I wanted to hear that she loved me, that our life meant something. That she hadn't given Roberto's people our address, our schedules, our vulnerabilities, but we don't always get what we want. "Mom," Arthur said quietly. People are staring. Diana looked around, seemed to remember where we were. I'm sorry, this is important. Barry's future is important. Barry's future. In 3 hours, he'd have no future as Barry Wilson. That identity would cease to exist, burned away like all the others I'd shed over the years. He'd become someone else, someone new, someone without a mother who'd nearly sold him to his father's enemies for the promise of adventure. We should go, I said, checking my watch. 7:30. Don't want to miss the call. The drive home was silent except for the radio playing classic rock normal family tension, nothing to suggest the hurricane about to hit. As we pulled into the driveway, I saw it. The black SUV from Harold's Warnings, parked directly across from our house, not even trying to hide anymore. Dad. Arthur's voice was tight. He'd seen it too. Into the house, I said calmly. Now. Diana was oblivious, already hurrying inside to set up her laptop. But Barry hung back, looking between me and the SUV. Dad, what's going on? Inside, son. Please. We entered through the front door the last time the Wilson family would ever enter this house. I locked it behind us, engaged the deadbolt, checked the windows. Diana was fussing with her laptop in the living room, adjusting the camera angle. 5 minutes until the call, she announced. Barry, come sit here. Clark, you're on the end. Try to smile. I pulled out my encrypted phone, texted Lois. Black SUV outside. Roberto likely inside. May need early extraction. Her response was immediate. Teams en route. ETA 20 minutes. Stall. 20 minutes. I had to keep us alive for 20 minutes. Actually, I said, I need to use the bathroom first. Barry, why don't you show your mom that robotics award you got last week? Now. Diana looked irritated. He should have it ready to discuss with the professor. Shows initiative. Barry looked confused, but headed to his room. Arthur followed me to the hallway. There's a gun taped under the kitchen table, I whispered. If something happens, you know how to use it. His eyes went wide. Dad, you remember what I taught you at the range? Yeah, but... Good. Protect your brother. I went to the bathroom, locked the door, and pulled out my phone. The camera feed showed 2 more vehicles had arrived, one at each end of the street. We were boxed in. My regular phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered. Hello, Michael. Roberto's voice was exactly as I remembered, cultured, slight Jersey accent, tinged with amusement. Wrong number, I said. No, cousin. Right number. Right address. Right family. Diana's lovely, by the way. Those photos don't do her justice. Photos. He'd been watching us longer than I thought. What do you want? Justice. Blood for blood. The family demands it. He paused. But I'm not unreasonable. Send the boy out. Let Barry come to Berlin as planned. You have my word he won't be harmed. Your word? I almost laughed. You're holding my son hostage? I'm offering him an education. He'll learn about his real family, his real heritage. The Torino legacy doesn't have to die with you, Michael. That legacy is nothing but graves and prison cells. And yet you're the one hiding, lying to your wife, your children. Tell me, does Diana know she's been sharing her bed with a killer? Do your boys know their father has blood on his hands? Through the bathroom window, I saw movement. 3 men getting out of the SUV. Roberto wasn't waiting for an answer. Extraction under fire, I texted Lois. Multiple hostiles. Teams 5 minutes out, shelter in place. 5 minutes, forever in a firefight. I flushed the toilet, ran water, maintained the charade for another few seconds. When I came out, my family was assembled in the living room, Diana at her laptop, the boys on the couch. The perfect target, all in one place. Actually, I said, moving to block the window, let's do this call from the basement. Better Wi-Fi signal down there. What? Clark, that's ridiculous. The call is starting. Diana's laptop chimed. Bruce Thompson's face appeared on screen, except it wasn't Bruce Thompson. It was Roberto Torino, older now, prison-hardened, but unmistakably my cousin. Hello, Wilson family, he said, smiling. Or should I say, Torino family? Diana's face went white. Bruce? I'm afraid Bruce never existed, my dear, but our connection, that was real. You've been so helpful, Diana. All those details about your husband's routine, your home, your children. I couldn't have found you without you. The front door exploded inward. Everything happened in seconds. I shoved the boys behind the couch, pulled the Glock from under the table, and put myself between the door and my family. Diana screamed. Arthur grabbed Barry, pulling him down. The first man through the door was Vincent Torino Roberto's younger brother. I'd taught him to shoot when he was 15. Now he was pointing a gun at me. Drop it, Michael. Can't do that, Vinny. This doesn't have to be messy. You come with us, your family walks away. Since when does Roberto leave witnesses? Diana was sobbing behind me, finally understanding the magnitude of what she'd done. Clark, what's happening? Who are these people? Not now, Diana. More men entered, faces I recognized from a life I'd tried to bury. Behind me, I heard sirens, distant but getting closer. Cops are coming, Vinny. You've got maybe 2 minutes to get out. Then we'll make this quick. He raised his gun. The window shattered. Not from inside, but from outside Harold Kim, with what looked like a hunting rifle, laying down cover fire from his bedroom window. God bless paranoid NSA retirees. I moved in the chaos, muscle memory from a different life taking over. The Glock barked twice. Vincent went down, clutching his shoulder. Another man screamed. I grabbed Diana, shoved her and the boys toward the basement door. Go! Safe room! Now! Dad! Barry was frozen, staring at the blood, the guns, his entire worldview crumbling. Move! Arthur, God bless him, grabbed his brother and mother, hauling them toward the basement. I backed after them, laying down, suppressing fire. The house was chaos, windows breaking. Roberto screaming orders through the laptop, sirens getting louder. We tumbled into the basement. I slammed the reinforced door, through the bolts I'd installed for exactly this moment. The water heater, I told Arthur. Pull the red lever. He did, and the fake water heater swung open, revealing the panic room I'd built 5 years ago. 6 by 8 feet, reinforced concrete, enough supplies for 72 hours. Inside, now. Diana was hyperventilating. Clark, please, what's happening? My name isn't Clark, I said, pushing them into the panic room. It's Michael Torino, and I'm the reason those men want us dead. Before she could respond, before any of them could process this revelation, the basement door exploded. They'd brought breaching charges. I shoved my family into the panic room, but there wasn't time to follow. Roberto's men were already on the stairs. Lock it, I shouted to Arthur, then pulled the water heater closed, hiding them. When Roberto's men found me, I was standing in the middle of the basement, gun empty, hands raised. Just me, I said. My family's gone. Marshals evacuated them an hour ago. Vincent, blood seeping through his shirt, backhanded me hard enough to split my lip. Liar. Check the house. You won't find them. From upstairs, Roberto's voice on the laptop. Break down every wall if you have to. That's when the U.S. Marshals arrived. The basement window exploded with flashbangs. White light, deafening sound, chaos. Through the smoke and noise, I saw Lois Brown in full tactical gear, leading a team of federal agents like an avenging angel in Kevlar. Federal agents! Weapons down! Now! Some of Roberto's men complied. Others didn't. The basement became a war zone, controlled bursts of gunfire, shouting, the acrid smell of cordite. I hit the floor, crawling toward the panic room. I needed to get my family out before a stray bullet found them. Clark! Lois spotted me, provided covering fire. I reached the water heater, pulled the lever. My family tumbled out, Diana white with shock, the boys wide-eyed but alert. Lois! I shouted. Get them out! She didn't hesitate, grabbing Diana while 2 other marshals flanked the boys. Safe House Protocol 7, she barked into her radio. 4 packages. Immediate extraction. As they rushed my family toward the stairs, Diana looked back at me, and in her eyes I saw it all: confusion, betrayal, fear, and underneath it all, the dawning realization of what she'd done. You lied to me, she said. We both did, I replied. Then they were gone, swept up the stairs and into armored vehicles that would take them to airports, safe houses, new lives. I'd see them again, but not as Clark Wilson. That man was as dead as Michael Torino was supposed to be. The fighting was over in minutes. Roberto's men were either down or in custody. Vincent would live, though he'd do it in federal prison. And somewhere in Berlin, Roberto was probably already destroying evidence, preparing to disappear. Lois helped me to my feet, surveying the destroyed basement. You okay? Define okay. Alive. Minimal holes. Then I'm okay. She pulled out her phone, showing me a map with 4 different highlighted routes. Your family's being separated for transport. Standard protocol. You'll reunite at the federal facility in 48 hours. 48 hours for Diana to process that her husband was a former mob accountant. For my boys to understand their father was a killer turned rat. For all of us to figure out if there was any family left to salvage. Diana was having an affair, I told Lois. With Roberto. She didn't know who he was, but she gave him everything. Our schedules, photos, Barry's information. Lois's expression softened slightly. We know. We've been monitoring her communications for 3 weeks. 3 weeks? I stared at her. You knew for 3 weeks and didn't tell me? We needed to see how deep the infiltration went, whether she was complicit or just stupid. And stupid. Dangerously, remarkably stupid, but not criminal. I laughed bitterly. That's something, I guess. Clark Michael, whoever you are today, this isn't over. Roberto's still out there. The family's still hunting you. You're going to need new everything, names, histories, the works. And Diana. She paused. Diana might not be coming with you. I'd known that was possible. Probable, even. The spouse who didn't know often couldn't handle the revelation. The betrayal cut both ways. The boys. They're minors. They go where the courts say they go. But given that their mother nearly got them killed? She shrugged. Family court judges tend to frown on that. Harold Kim appeared at the top of the stairs, still holding his hunting rifle. Federal agents want to talk to me about discharging a firearm in city limits, he called down. Should I mention the 3 men I stopped from flanking the house? Harold's with us, Lois told her team. Then to me, your neighbor's quite the asset. He saved our lives. He's been saving your life for 3 years. We placed him there after the first credible threat. Retired NSA, my ass. He's active CIA, Domestic Protection Division. Another lie. Another protector I hadn't known about. My life was nothing but layers of deception, and now they were all peeling away at once. I need to see my family, I said. Not yet. Debriefing first, then secure transport, then maybe supervised contact. She guided me toward the stairs. I know this is hard, but you're alive. They're alive. That's what matters. As we climbed out of my destroyed basement, I looked back at the panic room that had saved my family. 5 years of preparation for 10 minutes of crisis. But it had worked. We'd survived. Outside, the street was chaos, police cars, ambulances, federal vehicles, neighbors gawking from their porches. The Wilson family's quiet life in Lincoln, Nebraska was over, splashed across tomorrow's headlines in blood and broken glass. Harold Kim caught my eye as I was led to a marshal vehicle. He nodded once a goodbye between men who'd never really known each other but had shared something profound anyway. Thank you, I mouthed. He touched his forehead in a small salute, then turned to handle the CIA handlers who'd arrived to extract him. As the vehicle pulled away, I saw Diana's abandoned laptop still open on our destroyed living room table, Roberto's face frozen on the screen. He was smiling, even in defeat, because he knew what I knew. This was just round 1. The Wilson family was dead, but Michael Torino was back, and this time I wasn't running. Chapter 3. The federal safe house smelled like fear and disinfectant. I sat in an interrogation room that wasn't called an interrogation room, staring at my reflection in glass that wasn't supposed to be two-way mirror, but definitely was. 43 years old, 14 hours without sleep, and I looked like a ghost of 2 different men, neither Clark Wilson nor Michael Torino, just some stranger caught between identities. Deputy Director Patricia Stone entered without knocking, because people at her level didn't need permission. She was everything Lois Brown wasn't: political, polished, and utterly without sympathy for former criminals turned government witnesses. Michael, she said, dropping a file thick as a phone book on the metal table. Or would you prefer Clark? I'd prefer to see my family. Your family is secure, separated for their protection and yours, undergoing individual debriefing. She opened the file, revealing surveillance photos that made my blood run cold. Let's discuss how Roberto Torino found you. The photos showed Diana at her school, at the grocery store, at the coffee shop where she'd apparently been using the Wi-Fi for her video chats with Bruce. Each image was time-stamped, going back 6 months. "Your wife," Patricia said, the word sharp as an accusation, "has been in contact with Roberto since May. 137 emails, 43 video calls. 16 packages sent to what she believed was a Berlin address, but was actually a forwarding service in Denver. Packages? Photos of your family, your son's report cards, a Father's Day card Barry made with your fingerprints on it, apparently a school project about identity." She pulled out the card, Barry's teenage handwriting declaring, "My dad, my hero," above a full set of my prints. I wanted to vomit. She didn't know, I managed. No, she didn't. Which raises the question, how did Roberto know to target her? Out of all the protected witnesses in the program, all the possible cities and identities, how did he zero in on Diana Wilson in Lincoln, Nebraska? Inside information. Obviously, but from whom? Patricia pulled out another photo, Deputy Marshal Ryan Mitchell, the mole Lois had mentioned. Mitchell had access to multiple files, but yours was triple encrypted Eisenly. He couldn't have broken it alone. Someone higher up. Or someone who's been playing a much longer game. She produced a laptop, turned it toward me. "This is your wife's original dating profile from 2011 before you met. Notice anything interesting?" I studied the screen. Diana's younger face smiled back, full of hope and possibility. Her profile mentioned being a widow, loving education, wanting a simple life in the Midwest. "The IP address," I breathed. "Very good. The profile was created from a computer in Atlantic City. Your wife claims she was visiting a friend, but that friend doesn't exist. The address she provided traces to a property owned by a shell company that, when you follow the breadcrumbs, links back to the Torino family." The room spun. "You're saying Diana was planted? 11 years ago?" "I'm saying someone knew Michael Torino would eventually surface somewhere as someone else. They couldn't watch every city, but they could seed assets in likely locations. Small cities, good schools for potential children, the kind of place the marshals like to hide families. Diana's not an asset. She can't be." Patricia pulled out a tablet, swiped to a video. "This is from 2 hours ago." Diana appeared on screen, sitting in a room much like mine, mascara streaked, still wearing that black dress from our last dinner. Across from her sat Agent Mara Johnson, FBI, a woman who could make stones confess. "Mrs. Wilson," Mara said on the recording, "tell me about Atlantic City." Diana wiped her eyes. "I told you I was visiting my friend Sarah." "Sarah who?" "Sarah. God, it's been so long. Sarah Matthews? Matthews? We met at a teaching conference. There's no record of a Sarah Matthews or Matthews at that conference." "Then I'm remembering wrong. It was 11 years ago." Mara leaned forward. "Who suggested you move to Lincoln?" Diana paused, and in that pause I saw something flicker across her face. Someone at the conference mentioned they were hiring, that Nebraska was nice for families." "Who specifically?" "I don't remember." "Mrs. Wilson, you're asking us to believe that you randomly moved to Lincoln, randomly met a man in witness protection, randomly started an affair with someone hunting that same man, and randomly provided him with every detail needed to kill your family." Diana broke down completely. "I didn't know. How could I know? Clark was just Clark. Boring, safe Clark who drove a bus and never wanted more." Patricia paused the video. "She's either the world's best actress or the world's unluckiest woman." "She's telling the truth," I said, but doubt crept in like fog. Had our entire marriage been orchestrated? Was every moment, every kiss, every "I love you" part of some elaborate trap? Perhaps. But truth has layers, Michael. Your wife may not have known she was bait, but someone positioned her to become bait. Patricia pulled out another document. Her first husband, the one who allegedly died in Afghanistan, he never existed. The death certificate is forged. The military records are fabricated. So she lied about being a widow. Or someone gave her those lies to tell. Someone who needed her to have a sympathetic backstory that would appeal to a man trying to build a normal life. I thought about our first meeting at that school fundraiser. How Diana had seemed so perfect beautiful, but not too beautiful. Smart but not threateningly so. Damaged enough to understand someone carrying secrets, but not so damaged she'd dig too deep. Roberto's playing a different game, I said slowly. This isn't about revenge, it's about something bigger. Now you're thinking like Michael Torino instead of Clark Wilson. Patricia smiled coldly. Roberto needs you alive for something. The attack on your house was meant to flush you out, not kill you. His men had clear shots they didn't take. He wants me to testify, to recant, say I lied about the family. Possibly. Or he needs information only you have. Think, Michael, what did you know that never made it into testimony? What secrets did you keep even from us? The Zurich accounts. $23 million in untraceable bearer bonds I'd hidden before turning state's evidence. My insurance policy I'd never cashed because doing so would have exposed me. Only 3 people had known those accounts existed. Me, Angela before she died, and Tommy Torino, I whispered. Roberto's father. I told him about the accounts the night before I testified. Promised I'd never touch them if the family left me alone. Tommy Torino died in prison 3 years ago. Lung cancer. But he could have told Roberto. Who now wants those accounts? Patricia nodded. 23 million would go a long way toward rebuilding the family empire. I can't access them anymore. The code's expired. But the Swiss bank might make an exception for the account holder appearing in person with proper identification. The kind of identification that would require you to reveal your original identity. She closed the file. This is why Roberto needs you alive and cooperative. He can't torture the information out of you if you're in martial custody. But if your son was in Berlin... Leverage. Exactly. A knock interrupted us. Lois Brown entered, looking haggard. We have a problem. Patricia's face darkened. Define problem. Diana Wilson's lawyer is here. Apparently she called him from the one phone call we stupidly allowed. He's demanding her immediate release and threatening to go public with the, quote, grossly incompetent handling of an innocent woman who's been traumatized by government deception. She nearly got her family killed. She was catfished by a criminal while married to a man living under a false identity. Legally, she's the victim here. Lois looked at me. It gets worse. She's filing for emergency divorce and full custody, claiming you've been lying to her for 9 years and exposed their children to danger. The hits just kept coming. Can she do that? She can try. Family court judges don't typically like fathers who turn out to be former mobsters. Lois pulled out her phone. Your sons are asking for you, by the way. They're scared, confused, and Arthur punched a wall hard enough to break 2 knuckles. I need to see them. Patricia stood. Not until we have a plan. Roberto's still in Berlin, but he won't stay there. The moment Diana's released, and legally, we can only hold her another 6 hours, he'll know his leverage play failed. He'll escalate. Then don't release her. On what grounds? Being stupid isn't a crime, Michael. Patricia gathered her files. We're moving you and your sons in 3 hours. New city, new names, the full package. Diana can make her own choice once she's processed everything. What about testifying? Roberto's trial. What trial? He hasn't committed a crime we can prove. The men at your house claim they were there for a party that got out of hand. Your neighbor shooting at them actually helps their case. They were defending themselves from a crazy old man with a rifle. Vincent Torino pointed a gun at me. Vincent Torino says you pointed first, and with your house destroyed, we can't prove otherwise. She paused at the door. You're back to square one, Michael. Running, hiding, hoping Roberto gets bored or dead before he finds you again. Unless what? Unless you want to go on offense for once. After they left, I sat alone with my thoughts and the ghost of every decision that had led me here. Diana's betrayal cut deep, but was it even betrayal if she'd been manipulated from the start? Were 9 years of marriage real if they began with a lie orchestrated by my enemies? The door opened again. This time it was Barry and Arthur, escorted by a marshal who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else dealing with traumatized teenagers. My son stood in the doorway, uncertain. Barry's face was puffy from crying. Arthur's right hand was bandaged, knuckles swollen despite the ice. Dad? Barry's voice cracked. Or, should I call you Michael? Dad's fine, I said, my own voice not much steadier. Dad's always fine. Arthur stepped forward first, always the braver one despite being younger. Mom's losing it, like completely losing it. She keeps screaming about how you destroyed our lives. She's not wrong. Bullshit! The profanity surprised all of us. Arthur never cursed. You kept us safe for 10 years. That's not destroying. That's protecting. Barry found his voice. Were you really in the mob? My family was. I kept their books, managed their money. When they killed someone I loved, I decided to stop. Someone you loved? Barry studied my face. Before Mom? Her name was Angela. We were married. She died because of who I was, what I knew. I testified so her death would mean something. And now Mom hates you for it. Mom hates me for lying about it. There's a difference. Arthur laughed bitterly. Is there? She lied too. We saw the video she was talking to that man about loving him, about being with him. She was lonely, I said, defending the woman who was currently trying to take my children away. I couldn't be the husband she needed because being that husband would have gotten us all killed. So you chose us over her? Barry asked. I chose keeping everyone alive. Sometimes that's all the choice you get. We talked for an hour about the Torino family, about witness protection, about the likelihood of playing varsity basketball when you don't technically exist. They had 1,000 questions, and I answered what I could, knowing that Patricia Stone was listening, evaluating, deciding if these boys were assets or liabilities. Are we going to have to change our names again? Arthur asked. Yes. Can I pick this time? Barry sounds stupid. Barry punched his brother's shoulder gently, and for a moment they were just normal kids again, not the sons of Michael Torino, not pawns in Roberto's game. Dad, Barry said suddenly, that man, Roberto, he said we're family, that we're Torinos. Biologically, yes, he's my cousin. So he's like our uncle? Second cousin, technically. But Barry, listen to me, family isn't blood. Family is choice. And that family, the Torino family, they choose violence and greed and death. Every time. But you didn't. No. I chose you. Both of you. And I'd choose you again. Arthur was quiet then. What about Mom? Do we get to choose about Mom? Before I could answer, Lois returned with someone I didn't expect, Selena Davis, a woman in a severe suit carrying a briefcase that probably cost more than I made in a month as Clark Wilson. Mr. Torino, she said, not bothering with my alias. I'm your attorney. I didn't hire an attorney. The Justice Department did. They'd rather not have their star witness from the biggest RICO case of the decade end up losing his children to a woman who nearly got them killed. She turned to the boys. Gentlemen, I'm going to need to speak with your father privately. Barry stood to leave, but Arthur didn't move. We're staying. You're minors. We're the ones who lived through it, Arthur interrupted. We get to know what happens next. Selena looked at me. I nodded. She pulled out a tablet, swiping through documents. Your wife's attorney is pushing for immediate emergency custody based on your deception about your identity. However, she's vulnerable on multiple fronts. First, the affair, while not illegal, it demonstrates poor judgment. Second, her providing family information to a stranger online violates basic security protocols any reasonable parent should follow. Third, and most damning, she withdrew $15,000 from your joint account without your knowledge to fund what she thought was Barry's trip, but was actually financing a kidnapping plot. She didn't know it was kidnapping. Irrelevant. She made unilateral decisions about your minor child's international travel without paternal consent, using marital funds, to send him to a stranger she'd never met in person. Selena pulled up another document. Judge Iris Anderson has agreed to an emergency hearing via video link in 2 hours. If we play this right, you'll maintain primary custody with supervised visitation for Diana. I don't want to take the boys from their mother. Dad, Barry said quietly, she almost got us killed. She didn't know. She knew she was cheating, Arthur interrupted. She knew she was lying. She knew she was sending Barry away without telling you the truth. Maybe she didn't know about the mob stuff, but she knew enough. Selena nodded approvingly. Your sons understand the situation better than you do, Mr. Torino. Diana Wilson made choices that endangered your children. That has consequences. Through the window, I could see the sun setting over whatever city we were in. I hadn't even asked. Somewhere, Diana was probably crying, probably terrified, probably hating me with every fiber of her being. Somewhere else, Roberto was planning his next move, patient as a snake. And here, in this federal building that smelled like fear and disinfectant, I was about to fight for the right to keep my sons while living under whatever name the government assigned us next. "What do I need to do?" I asked. Selena smiled, sharp as a blade. "Tell the truth. For once in 9 years, Mr. Torino, tell the complete truth." The video hearing was held in a conference room that had seen too many broken families. Judge Iris Anderson appeared on a large screen, her face composed but her eyes showing she'd already reviewed the file. Diana was on another screen, her lawyer beside her, looking like she'd aged 5 years in 5 hours. "This is highly unusual," Judge Anderson began. "But given the extraordinary circumstances and security concerns, I'm allowing this emergency hearing. Mrs. Wilson, you're petitioning for immediate full custody?" Diana's lawyer, a man who looked like he chased ambulances when he wasn't destroying families, leaned forward. "Your Honor, my client has been victimized by a decade of deception. She married a man who didn't exist, raised children under false pretenses, and now faces threats to her life because of her husband's criminal past." "Alleged criminal past," Selena interjected. "Mr. Torino was granted full immunity in exchange for his testimony. He's been a law-abiding citizen for 10 years, living under a false name, in the Witness Protection Program, as authorized by the federal government." Judge Anderson raised a hand for silence. "Mrs. Wilson, I've reviewed the evidence. You engaged in an online relationship with someone you'd never met, shared intimate details about your family, including photographs and schedules, and planned to send your minor son overseas without your husband's knowledge or consent. Is this accurate?" Diana wiped her eyes. I thought it was a cultural exchange program. You thought your husband wouldn't approve, so you acted unilaterally? He never wants anything more for our boys. He's content with mediocrity." "The man you call mediocre kept your family safe for a decade while living with a price on his head," Judge Anderson said sharply. "Mr. Torino, excuse me, Mr. Wilson, how do you respond to your wife's petition?" I looked at Diana through the screen, saw the woman I'd fallen in love with buried under rage and betrayal. "Your Honor, my wife is a good mother who made terrible decisions. I don't want to take our sons from her, but I need to keep them safe. She's proven she can't recognize threats, can't maintain security protocols, and her judgment when emotionally compromised is dangerously flawed." "You lied to me!" Diana screamed. "Every day for 9 years you lied." "Yes," I said simply. "I lied to keep you alive. You lied because you were bored." Judge Anderson reviewed something off-screen. "I'm prepared to make a temporary ruling pending a full hearing. Mr. Wilson, or whatever your legal name becomes, will maintain primary physical custody. Mrs. Wilson will have supervised visitation pending completion of a security awareness course and psychological evaluation. These orders will transfer to whatever jurisdiction the family relocates to under martial protection." "Your Honor," Diana's lawyer protested, "my client doesn't even know where her children will be living." "Your client proved she can't be trusted with that information when she shared their current address with a member of organized crime." "She didn't know." "Ignorance is not absolution, Counselor. Mrs. Wilson, you have 6 hours to decide if you want to enter the Witness Protection Program with your family under the terms I've outlined, or remain in Nebraska and have limited supervised contact with your children. Court is adjourned." The screen went black. Diana's screen lingered for a moment longer, her face a mask of disbelief and fury. "I'll never forgive you," she said. "I know," I replied. Then she was gone too. "Well," Selena said, closing her briefcase, "that went better than expected." Barry and Arthur sat in shocked silence. Their family had just been officially torn apart by a judge they'd never met, in a city they didn't know, while running from a relative they'd just learned existed. "You okay?" I asked them. "No," Barry said. "But we will be, right?" "Right." Patricia Stone entered with a stack of documents. "New identities, effective immediately." I opened the first folder. David Thompson, 43 years old, widower, 2 sons, moving to Spokane, Washington for a fresh start after his wife's death in a car accident. Back to driving trucks long haul this time, better pay, more time away from home. Thompson? I looked at Patricia. You're kidding. Roberto ruined that name for your wife. Might as well get some use out of it. She handed folders to the boys. Michael Thompson, Alex Thompson. Congratulations, you're from Portland originally. These are terrible names, Arthur, now Alex, complained. They're invisible names, that's the point. Barry Michael laughed humorlessly. Michael? You're making me Michael? Your father's recycling his greatest hit. Why shouldn't you? Outside, I could hear vehicles arriving. Our escort to the airport, then to Spokane, then to another life built on lies but hopefully free from the sins of the past. What about Mom? Alex asked. Patricia's expression softened slightly. That's up to her. She has until midnight to decide. We waited, packed nothing because we had nothing. Said goodbye to no one because everyone we knew was part of a life that no longer existed. As the clock approached 11 p.m., Lois entered with a final update. Diana Wilson has chosen to remain in Nebraska. She's agreed to all security protocols and will have supervised video calls with the boys twice a week. My sons looked at me, waiting for my reaction. But what was there to say? Their mother had chosen her anger over them. Maybe she'd change her mind. Maybe time would soften the betrayal. Or maybe this was always how it was going to end, with Diana alone in Lincoln, the Wilson family a ghost story, and 3 people named Thompson boarding a plane to somewhere else. Time to go, Lois said. We stood, 3 strangers with new names and old wounds. As we walked toward the door, Barry Michael now asked the question I'd been dreading. Dad, what about the money? The Swiss accounts Patricia mentioned? I stopped. What about them? Roberto's not going to stop looking for us until he gets them, is he? No. So we're just going to keep running forever? I looked at my sons, these brave, broken boys who deserved better than a lifetime of looking over their shoulders. No, I said again, and this time I meant it. We're going to end this. How? Alex asked. I thought about Patricia's words going on offense for once. About Roberto, so confident in his long game he'd exposed himself on video. About $23 million sitting in Zurich, waiting for someone with the right codes and the wrong motivation. I'm going to give Roberto exactly what he wants, I said, and then I'm going to bury him with it. Lois raised an eyebrow. The Michael Torino I remember wouldn't have taken that risk. Michael Torino is dead. David Thompson, on the other hand, has nothing left to lose. We walked out into the night, toward the convoy that would take us to our new lives. But I was already planning our return. Roberto wanted those accounts? Fine. But he'd have to come through me to get them, and this time, I'd be ready. Chapter 4. The bunker smelled like 40 years of military surplus and fresh terror. We'd been here 6 hours since U.S. Marshals had exploded into our destroyed home like angels of vengeance. 6 hours since my wife learned her husband was a ghost. 6 hours since the Wilson family died in a hail of bullets and broken trust. Now we sat in what used to be a Cold War missile silo converted into a witness protection safe house, 20 feet underground somewhere in Iowa, waiting for lawyers and judges to decide if we had any family left to salvage. Diana sat as far from me as the small conference room allowed, still in that black dress she'd worn to impress Roberto, mascara streaked down her face like war paint. Barry and Arthur flanked me, choosing sides without being asked to. The air between us could have been carved with a knife. 9 years, Diana said for the 100th time, her voice raw. 9 years of lies. Mom, please, Barry tried, but she cut him off with a look that could have frozen blood. Don't you dare defend him. Your father, she laughed, bitter as burnt coffee, or whoever he really is, has been lying since before you were born. My name is Michael, I said quietly. Michael Salvatore Torino, born in Newark, New Jersey. Married Angela Torino in 2006. She died in 2010, car bomb meant for me. I testified against 47 members of my family's organization in 2011. I met you in 2012, and every day since then I've been trying to keep us alive. Diana stared at me like I was a stranger wearing her husband's face, which I suppose I was. The man I married was Clark Wilson from Ohio, widower, bus driver, safe. Each word was an accusation. Clark Wilson never existed. Then what does that make our marriage, our children, our entire life? Agent Mara Johnson entered before I could answer, followed by Selena Davis and a court reporter. The FBI agent's face was carved from stone, giving nothing away. Mrs. Wilson, Mara began, setting up a laptop, we need to discuss your communications with Roberto Torino. I told you I didn't know who he was. We believe you. But you knew you were having an emotional affair. You knew you were sharing intimate family details with a stranger. You knew you were planning to send your son overseas without your husband's consent. Diana's hands clenched in her lap. I was lonely. Can you understand that? Living with a man who was always watching, always careful, never fully present. I thought he was paranoid. Turns out he was just guilty. I was protecting you, I said. You were protecting yourself, your secrets, your past. We were just, what, props in your cover story? You were everything, I said, meaning it. You and the boys were the only real things in my fake life. Arthur spoke up suddenly. Mom, you sent him our dad's fingerprints. Diana turned to our younger son, confusion on her face. What? The Father's Day card I made in shop class. You sent it to Berlin. It had Dad's full handprint on it. Arthur's voice was steady, but his eyes were wet. If they'd run those prints, they'd have found Michael Torino. Dad would be dead now. The room went silent except for the hum of ventilation systems designed to keep us alive 30 feet underground. I didn't. I couldn't have known. Diana's voice broke. Mara pulled up images on her laptop, screenshots of Diana's emails with Bruce Thompson. June 15th, you wrote, Clark leaves for work at 6:30 a.m., gets home by 4 p.m. Regular as clockwork. July 2nd, we live on Maple Street, the yellow house with the basketball hoop. August 10th, Barry's so excited about Berlin. Clark doesn't know yet, but I'll convince him. Should I continue? Each date was another nail in the coffin of Diana's defense. Mrs. Wilson, Selena Davis interjected, you're not being charged with a crime, but your actions, regardless of intent, endangered your family. The court needs to determine if you can be trusted with their safety going forward. Trusted? Diana laughed, high and slightly hysterical. I'm the one who can't be trusted? I'm not the former mobster. No, Mara said calmly. You're the woman who fell for a catfishing scheme and nearly delivered your teenage son to organized crime. The truth of it hit Diana like a physical blow. She crumpled, sobbing into her hands. Despite everything, I wanted to comfort her. But when I moved toward her, she recoiled. Don't touch me. Don't you ever touch me again. Barry stood abruptly. I need air. We're in a bunker, Arthur pointed out. Then I need different air. A marshal escorted him out, leaving us in our toxic bubble of revelation and recrimination. Mrs. Wilson, Mara continued, pulling up more documents. We need to discuss Berlin. The program Bruce Thompson was promoting doesn't exist. The school he claimed to represent has never heard of him. The address you were given for the exchange program is a warehouse owned by a shell company linked to Roberto Torino. Diana looked sick. He would have taken Barry? Best case scenario? Hostage to force your husband's cooperation. Worst case? Your son would have disappeared forever. That broke something in Diana. The rage, the betrayal, the righteous indignation, all of it crumbled into horror. Oh God, what did I do? You were lonely, I said quietly. Roberto's good at finding lonely people, desperate people. He found you, studied you, gave you everything I couldn't. Attention, Diana whispered. He gave me attention, compliments, made me feel seen. While I made you feel invisible. She looked at me then, really looked at me for the first time since learning the truth. Who are you? Really? So I told her. Everything. My childhood in Newark. My father's death when I was 12. Being raised by Uncle Tommy to take over the family books. Meeting Angela at a cousin's wedding. The life I'd built inside the family, comfortable, insulated, willfully blind to the violence that paid for it all. Then Angela's death. The bomb that was meant for me because I'd questioned the wrong expenses, noticed the wrong patterns. holding her while she bled out in our driveway, her last words, "Don't let them win." The decision to testify, the trial, watching my entire family, blood family, chosen family, everyone I'd ever known stare at me with hatred as I detailed their crimes. The moment I realized I'd burned my entire world to the ground and would have to live in the ashes. "Then I met you," I said. "This beautiful widow at a school fundraiser raising money for kids who weren't even yours yet. You laughed at my stupid joke about the punch being strong enough to strip paint. You had this light in you, this hope. I'd forgotten people could still have hope." Diana was crying again, but differently now, softer. "Was any of it real?" she asked. "All of it, every moment, every feeling. The only lie was my name, and your entire past, and the danger you put us in, and all of that, yes. But Diana, when I said I loved you, that was Michael Torino speaking, not Clark Wilson. When I held our boys for the first time, that was real. When we fought about money, about ambition, about my refusal to reach for more, that was real frustration at a real problem. I couldn't give you the life you deserved because that life would have gotten us killed." Arthur returned with Barry, who looked calmer but still fragile. They sat down, our fractured family around a government-issued table in a bunker that felt like a tomb. "We need to make a decision," Selena said, checking her phone. "The Marshalls can relocate the family to gather new identities, new city, fresh start, or Mrs. Wilson can remain in Nebraska while Mr. Torino and the boys relocate separately. But we need to know now." "Together?" Diana looked at me incredulously. "How could we possibly stay together after this?" "People have survived worse betrayals," I said. "Name one." "My family. Roberto's father raised me like a son after my dad died. I betrayed him to the FBI. He died in prison because of my testimony. Roberto has every right to want me dead. But you? You were lonely. You were human. You made a mistake. A mistake that almost killed our children. And my mistakes actually killed Angela. But here's the thing, Roberto wins if we let this destroy us. He targeted you because he knew exactly what would happen. He knew you'd feel neglected, knew I couldn't explain why, knew the revelation would tear us apart." Barry spoke up. "I want us to stay together." We all turned to him. "I know Mom messed up. I know Dad lied. But we're still a family. Messed up, yeah, but family." He looked at Diana. "Mom, you were lonely. Dad was distant. You both screwed up in different ways. But you both love us, right?" "Of course," Diana said immediately. "Always," I echoed. "Then figure it out. Because Art and I didn't ask for any of this, and we shouldn't lose both parents because you two couldn't communicate." Arthur nodded. "What he said. Plus, if we split up, Roberto wins. He wanted to destroy us, don't let him." From the mouths of babes, wisdom. Mara's phone buzzed. She read the message, her face darkening. "We have a problem. Roberto's escalating. He just posted a video online. It's going viral." She turned the laptop toward us. Roberto appeared, sitting in what looked like a study, composed and articulate. "My name is Roberto Torino," he said to the camera. 10 years ago, my family was destroyed by lies. My cousin, Michael Torino, fabricated evidence against 47 innocent people, sending them to prison or death. He was paid $30 million by the federal government for his lies. Now he lives under a false name, protected by the very system he corrupted. But justice has a way of finding the truth. The video cut to surveillance footage our house in Lincoln, Diana, at school. The boys playing basketball. All recent. All showing Roberto had been watching us for months. "The man you know as Clark Wilson is a fraud, a killer, a thief. He stole millions from my family's legitimate businesses. He destroyed lives with his lies. And now he hides behind his wife and children, using them as shields. Diana Wilson, if you're watching this, you married a monster. Your children call a murderer father. You deserve to know the truth." The video ended with Roberto providing an email address for anyone with information about Michael Torino's current location. "He just put a public bounty on your head," Mara said grimly. "How many views?" I asked. 2 million and climbing." Diana grabbed my hand the first time she'd touched me since learning the truth. "They'll find us." "Yes. We can't stay in Nebraska." "No." She looked at our sons, then back at me. "I don't forgive you. I don't expect you to. But I won't let him hurt our boys. Neither will I." She took a shaking breath. We go together. New names, new place, new start. But Clark, Michael, whoever you are, no more lies. Not one, ever. Agreed. Selena pulled out documents. We'll need to formalize custody arrangements even if you're relocating together. Judge Anderson insists. The video hearing with Judge Anderson was brief but intense. She reviewed everything: the affair, the deception, the endangerment, the viral video now making us famous in the worst possible way. Mr. and Mrs. Wilson, or whatever your names will be, you're both victims and perpetrators here. Mr. Wilson, you lied about fundamental aspects of your identity. Mrs. Wilson, you violated basic security and trust. Under normal circumstances, I'd be looking at divorce proceedings and custody battles. But these aren't normal circumstances. She paused, studying us through the screen. I'm granting temporary joint custody with conditions. Mr. Wilson will be primary residential parent due to security concerns. Mrs. Wilson will participate in all security briefings and follow all martial protocols without exception. Any violation will result in immediate separation and loss of custody. Am I clear? Yes, Your Honor, we said in unison. Good, because your children need parents more than they need perfect parents. Don't make me regret this decision. The screen went dark. Patricia Stone entered with our new identities. The Thompson family, David, Rebecca, Michael, and Alex. Spokane, Washington. You leave in 1 hour. Diana Rebecca now looked at her new driver's license. Rebecca Thompson. Sounds like someone who plays bridge and makes casseroles. Perfect, Patricia said. Invisible, forgettable, safe. As we prepared to leave, no belongings, no goodbyes, no trace of the Wilsons left behind, Harold Kim appeared one last time. Wanted to say goodbye properly, he said, shaking my hand. In the handshake, he pressed something into my palm, a phone number written on paper. If you ever need help, real help, the kind the marshals can't or won't provide. CIA, I asked quietly. Retired CIA, active human being. He looked at Diana and the boys. Take care of each other. The world's full of Roberta Torinos, but it's also full of people willing to help. Remember that? Then he was gone, this guardian angel in cardigan sweaters who'd watched over us without our knowing. The marshal convoy was waiting 4 identical SUVs with tinted windows. We'd be split up, taking different routes to the airport, different flights to Seattle, reuniting only in Spokane. Protocol, safety, paranoia. As Diana and I were separated into different vehicles, she stopped. Michael, she said, using my real name for the first time voluntarily. What you said in there about Angela. You held her while she died. Yes. And you loved her? With everything I had. But you love us too? With everything I have left. She nodded slowly. That's something, I guess. It's everything, I corrected. She climbed into her SUV without another word. Barry Michael now hugged me quickly before getting in with her. Arthur Alex would ride with me. As we drove away from the bunker, from Iowa, from everything, Alex asked, Do you think Mom will ever really forgive you? I don't know. Do you think Roberta will find us again? Probably. Do you think we'll ever be safe? I looked at my 14-year-old son, forced to grow up in one violent night, and told him the truth. No, but we'll be together. And sometimes that's the best kind of safe there is. The convoy split at the highway, Diana and Barry heading west, Alex and I heading north. In 12 hours, we'd be the Thompson family of Spokane, starting over with nothing but fake names and real trauma. Roberto had won this round. He'd destroyed the Wilson family as surely as if he'd killed us. But the Thompson family? That was going to be different, because now Diana knew the truth. Now the boys understood the danger. Now we were all on the same side of the lies. The Midwest disappeared behind us, flat fields giving way to nothing in the dark. Ahead, mountains and new names and the same old danger wearing new faces. Alex fell asleep against the window, and I drove through the night thinking about Roberto's video, about 2 million people now knowing my face, about Diana in another car hopefully not planning to disappear the moment we reached Spokane. My phone, the encrypted one, buzzed with a text from Lois Brown. Roberto's in the wind. Berlin apartment empty. Credit cards canceled. He's coming. Of course he was. The long game had failed, so now he'd play short and violent. But he'd taught me something valuable: the power of truth, even twisted truth. He'd used honesty as a weapon, exposing my lies to destroy my family. Maybe it was time I returned the favor. I pulled up a secure email app, typing one-handed while the marshal driving pretended not to notice. "Roberto," I wrote, "you want the Zurich accounts? Let's talk. But this time, no proxies, no games, just family. M." I hit send before I could reconsider. Within seconds, a response. "Finally ready to be reasonable, cousin. I'll be in touch. Give my regards to Rebecca. R. Rebecca. He already knew our new names. We were the Thompson family for less than 12 hours before we were compromised. But this time, I wasn't running. This time, I was going to face Roberto on my terms. The boys needed a future. Diana Rebecca deserved a life without looking over her shoulder. And me? I needed to stop being Clark Wilson's ghost and Michael Torino's shadow. Time to become someone new, someone dangerous, someone Roberto wouldn't see coming. End of part 1. The Wilson family was dead, buried in a federal bunker in Iowa. The Thompson family was born in a convoy of black SUVs racing through the night. And somewhere between those two identities, Michael Torino was planning a resurrection. Roberto thought he'd won by exposing the truth. But truth was a double-edged sword, and I'd been sharpening mine for 10 years. The game wasn't over. It was just beginning. Chapter 5. Spokane. Washington smelled like pine trees and lies. We'd been the Thompson family for exactly 13 days when I realized my wife was planning to leave. Not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon. I could see it in the way she Rebecca now, though she flinched every time someone called her that stood at our kitchen window each morning, staring at the Cascade Mountains like they were prison walls. "Coffee's ready," she said without turning around, her voice flat as week-old soda. November in Spokane was nothing like November in Nebraska. Here the cold had teeth, and the early darkness felt like a blanket thrown over our heads. Our new house sat on a quiet street in the valley, surrounded by other modest homes filled with people living their real lives with their real names. "Thanks," I said, taking the mug she offered. We didn't touch anymore. Hadn't since that night in the bunker when she'd learned who I really was, who we really were. Michael Barry. I had to stop thinking of him as Barry came downstairs already dressed for his new school, Roosevelt High, home of the Rough Riders. He'd joined the robotics club, same as before, trying to build something normal out of the wreckage of our lives. "Dad, I need $30 for the field trip," he said, not meeting my eyes. "Where to?" "Microsoft campus. The robotics teacher thinks it'll be inspiring." He shrugged. "Like anything matters when you don't technically exist." I pulled two 20s from my wallet, David Thompson's wallet, with David Thompson's driver's license and David Thompson's library card. "Keep the change." "Blood money?" Rebecca muttered from the window. "Rebecca, don't." She turned to face us, and I saw she'd been crying again. "Just don't. I'm trying, okay? I'm here. I'm playing along. But don't expect me to be happy about it." Alex came down next, quieter than his brother, always watching. At 14, he'd developed a radar for tension that would have made him a good Torino if we'd stayed in that life. "Mom's crying again," he announced unnecessarily. "I have allergies," Rebecca said. "It's November. Indoor allergies." We ate breakfast in silent cereal and lies, toast, and pretense. This was our new routine. Wake up, pretend to be the Thompsons, go through the motions of a normal family while U.S. Marshals watched our house from unmarked cars, and my cousin Roberto planned his next move from whatever hole he'd crawled into. After the boys left for school, Rebecca and I stood in our kitchen like strangers who'd been forced to share a cabin on a sinking ship. "I need to get a job," she said. "I can't just sit here all day. Patricia Stone says—" "I don't give a damn what Patricia Stone says. I'm a guidance counselor. That's the one thing about me that was real. I need to work." She was right. The Marshal Service had set her up with online tutoring, but it wasn't enough. Rebecca needed purpose the way I needed redemption desperately and probably futilely. "I'll talk to Lois," I said. "Maybe there's a private school that needs—" "Stop." "What?" "Stop trying to fix this. You can't fix this, David, Michael, whoever you are today." She poured her coffee down the sink, the steam rising like a ghost between us. Our son is upstairs right now writing in a journal he thinks I don't know about. He's documenting our old life because he's terrified he'll forget who he really is. Our other son wakes up screaming twice a week, and I'm married to a stranger who got 47 people sent to prison. They were murderers. So were you. The words hung in the air like a noose. I never killed anyone, I said quietly. No? What about Angela? Would she be dead if not for you? It was the cruelest thing she could have said, and we both knew it. Angela's death was the wound that never healed, the ghost that haunted every decision I'd made since. That's not fair. Fair? Rebecca laughed, bitter and sharp. Fair would be me married to an actual bus driver in Nebraska. Fair would be our sons using their real names. Fair would be not having to check under our car for bombs every morning. You think I wanted this? I think you chose this. Every day for 10 years you chose to lie to me. And now we all get to live with your choices. The doorbell rang, saving us from saying things we couldn't take back. Through the peephole, I saw George Patterson, our neighbor, 73 years old, retired police chief, and definitely not randomly assigned to the house next door. "Morning, David," he said when I opened the door. His eyes did that cop thing, scanning, assessing, cataloging. "Wanted to invite you and the family for Thanksgiving dinner. My daughter's flying in from Seattle, making her famous turkey." Thanksgiving. I'd forgotten it was coming. In witness protection, holidays were just days when you remembered everything you'd lost. "That's kind of you, George, but..." "Patricia Stone already cleared it," he said quietly. "Might be good for the boys. Normalcy and all that." So George was one of ours. Of course he was. "I'll talk to Rebecca." "You do that." He paused. "Oh, and David, you might want to check your mail. Looked like you got something from overseas." My blood went cold. We weren't supposed to get mail from overseas. We weren't supposed to get mail from anyone who knew we existed. The envelope was in our box, thin and white, with a Berlin postmark. No return address. Inside, a single photograph. Roberto standing in front of the Brandenburg Gate, holding a copy of yesterday's newspaper. On the back, in his neat handwriting, "Still waiting for that conversation about Zurich. Family is everything. R." I burned it in the kitchen sink while Rebecca watched. "He knows where we are," she said. It wasn't a question. "He's always known. That's the game. He knows. We know he knows. But as long as he doesn't act on it, the marshals can't do anything. This is insane. This is witness protection." My encrypted phone buzzed. Lois Brown. "We need to meet," she said without preamble. "Safeway on Sprague, 20 minutes. Come alone." Rebecca looked at me as I grabbed my coat, David Thompson's coat, bought at Target. Nothing like the ones Michael Torino used to wear. "More secrets?" she asked. "More trying to keep us alive." Same thing, isn't it? I didn't answer because she was right. In our world, secrets and survival were the same currency. The Safeway parking lot was busy enough for anonymity. Lois was in a Honda Civic, dressed like a soccer mom, invisible in the suburban landscape. I slid into the passenger seat. "We have a problem," she said, handing me a tablet. The screen showed a federal database entry. Deputy U.S. Marshal Ryan Mitchell, the mole Patricia had mentioned. But this was new information. "Mitchell made a deal," Lois explained. "Full confession in exchange for protective custody. He gave up everything, every family he compromised, every payment he took, every contact in the Torino organization." That's good, right? It would be, except he escaped during transfer yesterday. Killed 2 guards, disappeared, and David... She paused, using my new name carefully. "He has the complete file on your family. Real names, fake names, safe house protocols, emergency extraction points, everything. Roberto has him. Most likely. Which means Roberto now has the playbook for the entire witness protection program in the Northwest region. We need to move. Where? Mitchell knows all our sites, every safe house, every protocol. Until we can build new infrastructure, you're actually safer staying put where we can watch you. Safer? Roberto sent me a photo from Berlin this morning. She nodded like she expected this. He's playing with you, showing he can reach you but choosing not to. It's psychological warfare. It's working. Lois pulled out another phone, this one a burner. Patricia wants you to have this. Direct line to a response team. Things go sideways, you hit one, and a full tactical unit responds in under 4 minutes. 4 minutes is a lifetime in a gunfight. It's what we have. She studied me. How's Rebecca? Planning to leave. You sure? I know what someone looks like when they're gathering courage to run. She's almost there. If she runs, she dies. Roberto will use her to get to you. I know. Make sure she knows. After Lois left, I sat in the Safeway parking lot watching normal people do normal things. A mother wrestling with her toddler over candy. An elderly couple arguing about coupons. A teenage employee collecting carts, earbuds in, oblivious to the world. None of them knew that 3 spaces over sat a man with 47 ghosts following him, whose family was unraveling like a cheap sweater, whose cousin was playing a game that would only end when one of them was dead. My regular phone rang. The school. Mr. Thompson? This is Principal Martinez at Roosevelt High. Martinez. Why did everyone in my life have that name? Is Michael okay? There's been an incident. We need you to come down immediately. I drove to the school with my heart in my throat. The principal's office smelled like disappointment and industrial disinfectant. Michael sat in a plastic chair, lips split, knuckles bloody. Next to him, another kid, bigger, with a black eye starting to bloom. Mr. Thompson, Principal Martinez began. Michael was in a fight. He called me a liar, Michael said, not looking at me. The other kid, his nameplate said Tyler Brooks, sneered. You said your dad was in the military. Then you said he was a teacher. Then you said he drove trucks. You can't even keep your story straight. My son was forgetting his legend. The stress was making him mix up details, blend our old lies with our new ones. Tyler, that's enough, the principal said. Mr. Thompson, this is Michael's 3rd incident this week. 3rd? He's been struggling to adjust. We understand you've recently moved here after a family tragedy. A family tragedy. That was one way to put it. My wife died, I said, sticking to the legend. Car accident. It's been hard on all of us. Michael's hands clenched. He hated this lie most of all, that his mother was dead when she was really at home, probably packing a bag. We recommend counseling, Principal Martinez said. The district has excellent resources. We'll consider it. In the car, Michael stared out the window. I hate this. I know. I can't remember what's real anymore. Did Mom really work at a school? Did we really live in Nebraska? Was any of it true? The feelings were true. The love is true. Tyler's dad is a real truck driver. He showed us pictures of his rig. I couldn't show anything because David Thompson doesn't exist. His truck doesn't exist. Nothing about us exists. We exist. Do we? It was too philosophical a question for a 17-year-old, but then, my son had aged years in the past 2 weeks. At home, Rebecca was in the bedroom with suitcases on the bed. My heart stopped. Going somewhere? She looked up, eyes red. I was. I had it all planned. Take the cash I've been hiding, get on a bus, disappear. Let you and the boys start fresh without me dragging you down. Rebecca. But then Alex came home early. Sick, the nurse said, but really just sad. He asked me to make him soup. Campbell's chicken noodle, the kind I used to make when they were little. She sat on the bed, surrounded by half-packed clothes. I stood there stirring soup and realized this is it. This is my family. Not the Wilson family or the Thompson family, just us. Whatever we're called. So you're staying? Where would I go? I'm Rebecca Thompson, widow of a soldier, mother of 2 boys who don't exist. I can't go back to being Diana Wilson, she's dead. And I can't be who I was before that because I don't even remember her anymore. I sat beside her, careful not to touch. I'm sorry for all of it. I know. She folded a shirt, then unfolded it. George Patterson invited us for Thanksgiving. Yeah. He's one of them, isn't he? The Watchers. Probably. His daughter who's visiting also a Marshal? Probably. She laughed, short and bitter. Is anyone in our life real? The boys are real. This moment is real. Is it? Or is Roberto watching us right now through some hidden camera, laughing at us playing house? As if on cue, my encrypted phone buzzed. Not Lois this time. The other phone, the one I'd kept hidden. A text from an unknown number. Beautiful family moment. Very touching. But tick-tock, cousin. Zurich won't wait forever. Neither will I. R. I showed Rebecca the message. She read it twice, then stood and walked to the window. In the distance, the mountains were turning purple in the fading light. He's here, isn't he? In Spokane. Maybe. Or he wants us to think he is. How do you stand it? The constant fear? You get used to it. It becomes background noise like living next to train tracks. I don't want to get used to it. The alternative is dying. She turned to face me. Sometimes I think that would be easier. Don't say that. Why not? It's true. If I were dead, you and the boys could disappear completely. I'm the weakness Roberto's exploiting. You're not a weakness. You're my wife. I'm a stranger you're stuck with. Alex appeared in the doorway, face pale. There's someone outside. I moved to the window, careful not to be seen. A man stood across the street smoking, watching our house, not trying to hide. Tall, thin, patient. Stay here, I told them, grabbing the emergency phone Lois had given me. But before I could dial, the man dropped his cigarette, crushed it under his heel, and walked away. Just as he turned the corner, he gave a small wave. Message delivered. We can reach you any time. George Patterson was on his porch, watching. He caught my eye, nodded toward where the man had disappeared, then went inside. He'd call it in, but we both knew it wouldn't matter. The man would be gone. No traces, no proof. Pack emergency bags, I told Rebecca. One for each of us. Cash, clothes for 3 days, copies of our documents. Keep them by the door. We're running? We're being ready to run. She nodded, the argument gone out of her. This was our life now, always ready to run, always waiting for the shoe to drop, always looking over our shoulders for Roberto's next move. That night, I sat up with the Glock in my lap, watching the street through a crack in the curtains. Rebecca dozed fitfully on the couch, unwilling to be alone in our bedroom. The boys were upstairs, hopefully dreaming of better things than their waking hours provided. At 3 a.m., my encrypted phone lit up with a message from Victor Martinez back in Lincoln. Diana Wilson is dead. Car accident. Brake failure. Thought you should know. I read it 3 times before it sank in. Roberto had killed Diana Wilson, the identity, the paper trail, the possibility of Rebecca ever going back. He was cutting off escape routes, forcing us deeper into the corner he'd designed. I looked at my wife Rebecca now, only Rebecca sleeping uneasily in the gray pre-dawn light. She didn't know yet that her old self had just been murdered, that even if she wanted to run back to her old life, that life no longer existed. We were the Thompsons now, for better or worse, till death do us part. And death, it seemed, was getting closer every day. Chapter 6. The girl who would save my son's life walked into our world on a Tuesday afternoon, carrying a robotics textbook and her own secrets. Dad, this is Emma, Michael announced, bringing her into our kitchen like she was a normal teenage girl, and we were a normal family who could afford to have normal visitors. Emma Rodriguez was 17, with dark hair and eyes that had seen too much. I recognized the look immediately. It was the same one my boys had developed, the same one I saw in the mirror every morning. The look of someone who knew the world had teeth. Nice to meet you, Mr. Thompson, she said, and her slight hesitation before my fake name told me everything I needed to know. She knew we were hiding something. The question was whether she was a threat or an ally. Emma's new too, Michael explained, grabbing sodas from the fridge. Just moved here from Arizona. Phoenix, she said, but her eyes flicked left when she said it. Lie. What brought your family to Spokane? I asked, casual but watching. My dad got a job. Construction. Another micro-tell the way her fingers tightened on the textbook. Rebecca came in from the living room where she'd been attempting to work on her online tutoring. 3 weeks into our new life, she'd developed a routine that kept her sane: work, cook, clean, cry when she thought no one was looking, repeat. This is my mom, Michael said. Hi, Mrs. Thompson, Emma said. You have a lovely home. Rebecca managed a smile that almost looked genuine. Thank you. Are you staying for dinner? I should get home. My dad worries. There it was, the flash of fear when she mentioned her father. I knew that fear. It was the same one my boys had when they talked about me to strangers, the worry that they'd say something wrong, reveal something dangerous. After Emma left, I made a call to Lois. Rodriguez family, supposedly from Arizona, new to Spokane. Can you check? Already did when they enrolled at Roosevelt. Manuel Rodriguez, former accountant for the Juarez cartel, testified 18 months ago, clean since then. Another witness protection family. What were the odds? Does Patricia know? She placed them there. Thought it might be good for your boys to have friends who understand the situation. Or it doubles our exposure. Glass half empty, as always. That night I found Michael in his room, working on something with wires and circuit boards spread across his desk. Emma seems nice, I said. She is. Her family's like ours. He looked up, surprised I was being direct for once. I know, he said. She told me. Her real name's not Emma, just like mine's not really Michael. Does that bother you? Everything bothers me, Dad. But at least with her, I don't have to pretend I have a dead mom and a normal life. Your mom's not dead. Rebecca Thompson's husband died in Afghanistan. That's the story, right? So either mom's dead or dad's dead, but either way, someone's always dead in our lives. He had a point. Can I ask you something? He said. When you were my age, what did you want to be? Alive, I answered honestly. By 17, I'd already seen 3 friends killed. All I wanted was to make it to 18. And now? Same goal, different timeline. He turned back to his circuitry. I'm building a security system. Motion sensors, cameras, silent alarms. Figured we need all the help we can get. My son, 17 years old, building defenses against the monsters I'd brought to our door. That's smart, I said. But Michael, I know. Trust the marshals. Follow protocol. Don't take unnecessary risks. He connected 2 wires, and a small LED lit up green. But what if the protocols fail? What if the marshals are compromised? What if we die anyway? He nodded. Then at least we tried. The next morning brought 2 pieces of bad news. First, Joey Torino, Roberto's cousin, had been spotted in Seattle, just 3 hours away. Second, Rebecca had found a job. It's perfect, she said, showing me the acceptance email. St. Catherine's Academy needs a substitute counselor. Private school, good security, background check already cleared by the diocese. Patricia won't approve it. Patricia already did. Apparently, the bishop is former FBI. The whole school's a safe zone for kids like ours, diplomats' children, witnesses' families, people who need discretion. Rebecca, I need this, David. I need something that's mine. Something that isn't about your past or Roberto or witness protection. Just, please. How could I say no? She'd given up everything, her name, her home, her identity. If a job could give her back some piece of herself, who was I to deny it? Okay, I said. But we set rules. Different routes to work each day. Panic button at all times. Check-ins every 2 hours. Deal. She kissed my cheek, the first voluntary physical contact in weeks. It felt like a victory and a goodbye at the same time. That afternoon, George Patterson knocked on our door with news that made my blood run cold. Thought you should know, he said quietly. New family moved in 3 houses down. The Mitchells. Mitchell, as in Ryan Mitchell, the escaped marshal who'd sold us out. Could be coincidence, George continued, but the husband matches the general description. Different hair color, beard, but the build's right. Have you reported it? Of course. But without confirmation, there's nothing official they can do, and if it is him. He knows all our procedures. Exactly. I spent that evening watching the Mitchell house through binoculars Rebecca didn't know I owned. Normal-looking family, man, woman, 2 kids. The man stayed inside mostly, but when he came out to get the mail, something about his walk seemed familiar. The way he scanned the street, checked corners, moved like someone expecting trouble or ready to cause it. My encrypted phone buzzed. Roberto. Neighbors can be so unpredictable, can't they, cousin? You never really know who lives next door until it's too late. He was confirming it. Ryan Mitchell was 3 houses away, probably armed, definitely dangerous, and absolutely under Roberto's control. That night, I gathered my family in the living room. "We need to talk about contingencies," I said. "Are we leaving?" Alex asked, already resigned to another move. "Not yet, but we need to be ready. Everyone gets a burner phone." I handed them out cheap flip phones, prepaid, untraceable. "Memorize this number." I wrote it on a piece of paper, let them study it, then burned it. "That's Harold Kim from Nebraska. If something happens to me, if we get separated, if everything goes wrong, you call that number." "Dad," Michael started, but I cut him off. "No arguments. This is insurance. Harold has resources, connections. He can help even when the marshals can't." Rebecca stared at her phone like it was a live grenade. "You're scaring me." "Good. Scared keeps you alive." I pulled out a map of Spokane, spread it on the coffee table. "Safe zones. The library on Sprague, there's always a plainclothes marshal there between 2 and 4 p.m. The Starbucks on Division Manager is former DEA, keeps a gun under the counter. St. Catherine's, where Rebecca works, like she said, the bishop is FBI, and they have protocols for protecting their people." "This is insane," Rebecca said. "This is preparation." Alex studied the map with the intensity he usually reserved for video games. "What about Emma's house? What about it? If her dad's cartel protection too, wouldn't their house be safe?" "Smart kid. Too smart." "Maybe, but we don't involve other families. They have their own problems." "Like we're not all in the same boat," Michael muttered. The next day, everything went to hell. It started simple. Rebecca went to work at St. Catherine's. The boys went to school. I went to my new job at a trucking company Patricia had arranged. David Thompson, long-haul driver, invisible in the great American machinery of commerce. But at noon, I got a call from the school. "Mr. Thompson? Your son Alex never showed up for first period." My blood went ice cold. "What about Michael?" "He's in class." I hung up, already running to my truck. Called Alex's burner phone straight to voicemail. Called Rebecca. She answered on the first ring. "Alex is missing." "What? How?" "I don't know. I'm heading to the school now." "I'm coming." "No. Stay at St. Catherine's. Stay safe." I called Lois next, breaking every speed limit between the trucking depot and Roosevelt High. "Alex Thompson, 14, didn't make it to school. Last seen leaving the house at 7:30 a.m. "Response team is mobilizing. David, if this is Roberto..." "I know, but it wasn't Roberto. It was worse. I found Alex 2 blocks from school, sitting at a bus stop with Ryan Mitchell. They were eating McDonald's, looking like a kid and his uncle having breakfast. Mitchell saw me coming, smiled, and raised his coffee cup in a mock toast. I parked illegally, hand already on the Glock under my jacket. "Hey, David," Mitchell called out as I approached. "Or should I say Michael? I get confused with all the name changes." "Let him go. He's free to go any time. Aren't you, Alex?" Alex looked at me, terrified but trying to hide it. "He said he knew you. Said you worked together." "We did," Mitchell said. "I kept him safe for 3 years. Then his family got me thrown in prison. Funny how things work out." "What do you want?" "Roberto wants a meeting tonight. Just you and him. Location to follow." "And if I refuse?" Mitchell pulled out a phone, showed me a video. Rebecca at St. Catherine's, walking to her car. The timestamp was 5 minutes ago. "Joey Torino's quite the marksman," Mitchell said casually. "One word from me and Rebecca Thompson becomes a real widow." "Dad?" Alex's voice was small. "It's okay, son. Mr. Mitchell was just leaving. With your answer." I looked at my son, my brave, scared, too young son, and made the only choice I could. "Tonight, but Alex comes with me now." "Of course. We're not monsters." Mitchell stood, ruffled Alex's hair in a gesture that made me want to break his hand. "Nice kid. Be a shame if something happened to him." After he left, I drove Alex to school in silence. Finally, he spoke. "That man's evil. Yes, he's going to kill you. He's going to try. You can't meet Roberto. I don't have a choice. There's always a choice. You taught me that. Sometimes all the choices are bad ones. I dropped him at school with instructions to stay with Michael, Stay visible, stay safe. Then I called Lois. Mitchell made contact. Roberto wants a meeting. Absolutely not. He'll kill Rebecca. We'll put a protection detail. Mitchell knows all our protection protocols, remember? He wrote half of them. Silence on the line. Then, what do you need? Backup. Invisible but close. I can give you a team, but David, this is what Roberto wants. You walking into his trap. I know, but what's the alternative? Live in fear forever? Wait for him to get bored and kill us anyway? I pulled into a parking lot, watching normal people live their normal lives. I'm tired of running, Lois. Maybe it's time to face this. Facing Roberto Torino is like facing a hurricane. You don't win. You just hope to survive. Then I'll survive. You know what he wants. The Zurich accounts. $23 million that I can't even access anymore. He doesn't know that. An idea formed, dangerous and possibly suicidal, but an idea nonetheless. Lois, what if I could access them? The code's expired. But Roberto doesn't know that either. What if I convinced him I could get the money, but I needed something from him first? Like what? Freedom. Real, permanent freedom. Him calling off the hunt, the family backing down, everything. He'd never agree to that. He might if he thought 23 million was worth more than revenge. And when he finds out you can't deliver, then we better have a plan B. That evening, I told Rebecca and the boys about the meeting. Rebecca took it better than expected, meaning she only threw one glass and screamed for 5 minutes instead of 10. You're not going, she said finally. I am. Then we're coming with you. Absolutely not. We're a family. We face this together. Rebecca. No, I'm done being protected. Done being the weakness Roberto exploits. If you're meeting him, I'm there. Me too, Michael said. And me, Alex added. I looked at my family, broken, scared, but unbreakably united, and felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. Okay, I said, but we do this smart. We do this careful. And we do this together. My phone buzzed. An address. A warehouse in the industrial district, midnight. Roberto picked an old Torino safe house, I told them. I know the layout, the exits, the blind spots. He's trying to use familiar ground to his advantage. But you know it too, Rebecca said. Exactly. We spent the rest of the evening planning. Michael would stay in the car, ready to call for help. Rebecca would cover the back exit. Alex would know, I said. Alex stays with George Patterson. Dad, non-negotiable. You're 14. This is adult business. He stormed off, furious but alive. I'd take furious and alive over the alternative any day. At 11:30 p.m., we loaded into the car, me, Rebecca, and Michael. Alex was at George's, hopefully asleep, definitely angry. We drove through Spokane's empty streets, each lost in our own thoughts. If something happens, Rebecca started, nothing's going to happen. But if it does, I want you to know I don't forgive you. Not completely. Maybe not ever. But I love you. Despite everything, I still love you. I love you too. Michael leaned forward from the back seat. This is really stupid, you know that, right? Yeah. Just checking. The warehouse loomed in the darkness, a monument to bad decisions and worse outcomes. But sometimes the only way out is through. Time to face the hurricane. Chapter 7, 3 months later, Anchorage, Alaska. The thing about Alaska in February is that the darkness isn't just absence of light, it's a living thing that presses against your windows and seeps into your bones. We'd been the Mitchell family for 6 weeks, and I was still getting used to the weight of it. Robert Mitchell, James Mitchell, Thomas Mitchell. Even our fake names had fake names now. Dad, the generator's acting up again, James called from the basement of our cabin. In our previous life, he'd been Michael, and before that, Barry. My 17-year-old son had more identities than a spy novel. Check the fuel line, I called back. Sometimes it freezes. Living 30 miles outside Anchorage meant generators, wood stoves, and a kind of isolation that would have terrified Diana Wilson, but somehow suited Rebecca Thompson, or Margaret Mitchell, or whoever my wife was today. She was at the kitchen table, preparing lessons for her online tutoring. St. Catherine's had given her a glowing reference before we'd fled Spokane, and she'd built up a steady clientele of students who didn't care where their teacher lived as long as she could explain calculus. "Any word from Patricia?" she asked without looking up. "Nothing new. Roberto's still in federal custody awaiting trial. And we still believe that. We believe it until proven otherwise." The warehouse meeting 3 months ago had been a trap, but not the kind we'd expected. Roberto had been there, yes, but so had the FBI. Turns out Mitchell had flipped again, this time working with the feds to bring down Roberto in exchange for a reduced sentence. The whole thing had been a setup to get Roberto on conspiracy charges. We'd walked into a federal operation, nearly got shot by both sides, and ended up in Alaska while the lawyers sorted out the mess. "Mom, I'm heading to Mary's!" Thomas yelled from upstairs. Arthur, Alex, Thomas. My younger son collected names like baseball cards. Mary Josephine was our closest neighbor, 5 miles north, a 60-year-old Inuit woman who'd taken one look at our city-soft family and decided we needed education in Arctic survival. Thanks to her, we could now skin a rabbit, predict weather changes by cloud formation, and identify which ice was safe to walk on. "Be back before dark," Rebecca called, "and take Buddy." Buddy was our husky mix, adopted from the Anchorage shelter our first week here. Part security system, part family therapist, all heart. After Thomas left, the house felt too quiet. James was still fighting the generator, Rebecca was lost in quadratic equations, and I was sitting at the window, watching the tree line for threats that probably weren't coming. My encrypted phone buzzed. "Lois, you see the news?" "What news?" "Roberto made bail." The words hit like cold water. "How?" "He was being held without. Judge ruled the conspiracy charges were entrapment, released on $5 million bond, electronic monitoring, can't leave New York." "He'll run." "Probably, but that's not your problem anymore." Except it was. It always would be. "There's more," Lois continued. "Ryan Mitchell was killed in protective custody yesterday. Throat cut. No witnesses. Roberto's cleaning house. From federal custody with an ankle monitor? You really think Roberto Torino needs to leave his house to order a killing?" Silence. Then, "Stay alert. Alaska's big, but not big enough if he really wants to find you." After she hung, I sat in the gathering darkness, processing this new reality. Roberto was free, Mitchell was dead, and we were at the edge of the world pretending to be safe. Bad news? Rebecca had appeared beside me, 2 cups of coffee in hand. "Roberto's out." She absorbed this, then sat down, handing me a mug. "So we run again?" "I'm tired of running." "Me too." She leaned against me, first voluntary contact in days. "Maybe we just stop. Stay here. Live whatever life we can until he finds us or forgets us. He won't forget. Then we live until he finds us." It was fatalistic but oddly comforting. We'd been in crisis mode for so long, the idea of just living seemed revolutionary. James emerged from the basement, covered in grease but triumphant. "Fixed it. Fuel line and the spark plug. Good job." He grabbed his own coffee, joined us at the window. "It's kind of beautiful here." He was right. The snow-covered mountains, the endless forests, the way the northern lights danced across the sky, Alaska was beautiful in a harsh, unforgiving way. "Your grandmother would have hated it," I said without thinking. "Dad's mom or mom's mom?" James asked. I realized I didn't know. Michael Torino's mother had died when he was 8. Clark Wilson's mother was supposedly in a nursing home in Ohio. Robert Mitchell's mother. I hadn't even invented her yet. "Does it matter?" Rebecca said. "They're all dead or fictional anyway." "Cheery, Mom." "Realistic." Thomas burst through the door with Buddy, both covered in snow, both grinning. "Mary says there's a storm coming," he announced. "Big one. Might be snowed in for days." "Better get supplies," I said, already reaching for my coat. "I'll come," Rebecca offered. "James, you and Thomas secure everything outside. Anything loose needs to be in the shed." It was nice having a purpose, even if that purpose was just storm preparation. We drove to Anchorage in comfortable silence, the truck's heater fighting against the dropping temperature. The grocery store was packed with people doing the same thing we were stocking up before the storm. Normal people living normal lives, buying milk and bread and batteries. David? David Thompson? I turned to find Emma Rodriguez, or whatever her name was here, standing with a cart full of supplies. Emma? It's Sarah now, Sarah Collins. She smiled sadly. You're here too? Small world. Smaller when you're in witness protection. She looked at Rebecca. Mrs. Thompson, sorry. I don't know your new Margaret, Rebecca supplied. Margaret Mitchell. Like the author. Patricia Stone has a sense of humor. Emma Sarah shifted nervously. Is Michael, I mean your son? James, he's good, fixing generators and missing Spokane. Me too. The missing part, not the generators. She paused. My dad got spooked after the warehouse thing. We left the same night you did. Where is he? Anchorage. We have an apartment downtown. He does construction when the weather permits. We exchanged new phone numbers, promises to have the kids get together, the kind of lies people tell when they're not sure they'll survive long enough to follow through. On the drive back, Rebecca was quiet. Finally, that girl likes our son. Yeah. He likes her too. Yeah. That's dangerous. Everything's dangerous. David Robert, whoever you are today, we can't let him get attached. We might have to run again. Or we might get to stay. Either way, he deserves some happiness. Happiness is a luxury we can't afford. Then what's the point? We survive and survive and survive, but for what? To exist? To breathe? That's not living. She stared out at the darkening sky. Sometimes breathing is enough. The storm hit that night like God's own fury. Wind that shook our solid cabin, snow that came sideways, temperature dropping so fast the windows cracked. We huddled around the wood stove, playing board games by lantern light, pretending this was an adventure instead of another night in hiding. Tell us about when you were kids, Thomas asked suddenly. What? You and Roberto, before everything went bad. I hadn't thought about those days in years. Summers at the Jersey Shore, Roberto and I building sandcastles while our fathers discussed business we didn't understand yet. His mother making Sunday sauce that took all day, the whole house smelling like tomatoes and basil. How he'd taught me to ride a bike after my father died, patient as an older brother I never had. We were close, I admitted. Best friends, really. He was 4 years older, but he never treated me like a kid. When my dad died, Roberto's family took me in. Uncle Tommy raised me like his own son. So Roberto's like your brother? James asked. Was. He was like my brother. What changed? I grew a conscience. He didn't. The wind howled louder, and somewhere in the distance a tree cracked and fell. I had a best friend once, Rebecca said quietly. Jennifer Walsh, back in Lincoln. We'd have coffee every Friday, complain about our husbands, plan trips we'd never take. She smiled sadly. I wonder if she thinks I'm dead. Diana Wilson is dead, I reminded her gently. Right. Diana Wilson died in a car accident. Brake failure. She laughed bitterly. Roberto even killed the fake me. He killed a name. You're still here. Am I? Because I don't feel like I'm here. I feel like I'm floating, disconnected, watching someone else live this life. Thomas moved closer to his mother, teenage awkwardness temporarily overcome by concern. You're here, Mom. You're real. We're real. She hugged him fiercely. You're right. You're the only real things left. My phone buzzed. Not the encrypted one, the regular one, which was somehow worse. Unknown number. Text message. Nice cabin, warm family scene. Shame about the storm. Roads will be impassable for days. No help coming. Sweet dreams, cousin. My blood went cold. What is it? Rebecca asked, reading my face. I showed her the message. He's here? Or wants us to think he is? James grabbed his laptop. Kid never went anywhere without it. I can check the security cameras. In this storm? Infrared still works. We crowded around the screen as he cycled through the cameras we'd installed Patricia's idea, though she didn't know James had upgraded them significantly. Nothing, nothing, nothing. Then a figure, just for a second at the edge of camera 4's range. Human-shaped but indistinct in the driving snow. Could be anyone, Rebecca said, but her voice shook. Could be, I agreed. Another text. Not anyone. Family reunion time. James's fingers flew across the keyboard. I'm alerting the marshals. They can't get here in this storm. Then what do we do? I stood, checking the Glock, then the shotgun, then the rifle. We defend our home. Against Roberto? Against anyone who tries to come through that door. Rebecca stood too, moving to the gun safe. She pulled out the .38 special I'd taught her to shoot in Spokane. Together? Together. Thomas looked scared but determined. What about me? You and Buddy go to the basement, the panic room. If things go bad, I'm not hiding while you fight. You're 14. You're hiding. Before he could argue, the lights went out. Not the power, the generator was still humming. Someone had cut specific lines, killed specific circuits. Professional work. Basement, I hissed at Thomas. Now. He went, Buddy following. Well-trained enough not to bark. James opened another laptop. Kid had backups for his backups. Switching to battery-powered cameras. The infrared showed 3 figures now, approaching from different angles. Roberto never gets his own hands dirty, I muttered. He's got help. Joey Torino? Maybe. Or hired muscle. The wind screamed, covering any sounds of approach. Snow made visibility beyond 10 feet impossible. Perfect conditions for an assault. Remember what I taught you, I told Rebecca. Center mass, squeeze don't pull, and... The front window exploded, not from a bullet from a thrown rock with something tied to it. A phone. It rang. I answered. Hello, Michael. Roberto's voice calm as ever. Roberto. Lovely weather for a reunion. What do you want? What I've always wanted. The Zurich accounts. And before you lie about not having access, know that I've spent considerable resources confirming you can still get them. You just need the right motivation. Which is, your family's lives, of course. Threaten them again and what? You'll call the marshals? In this storm? You'll shoot at shadows in the snow? Please, Michael. We're past games now. Then come inside. Face me. I don't need to. See, you're going to come outside. Alone. Unarmed. Because if you don't, if you make this difficult, I'll burn that cabin down with your family inside. You're bluffing. Thomas is in the basement with the dog. Rebecca's holding a .38 she's fired exactly 12 times at a range. James is on his laptop trying to signal for help that won't come. You have 6 rounds in the Glock, 8 in the shotgun, 5 in the rifle. My men have accelerants, explosives, and patience. Math isn't on your side, cousin. He knew everything. Positions, weapons, even ammunition count. 2 minutes, Roberto said. Then we do this the hard way. The line went dead. Rebecca grabbed my arm. You can't go out there. If I don't, we all die. If you do, you die. Maybe, but you live. That's not living. James looked up from his laptop. I got a signal out. Marshal response team knows we're under attack. In this storm, they're hours away. Then we hold out for hours. Or I end this now. I kissed Rebecca, hugged James, and headed for the door. Dad, no. Guard your mother. Guard your brother. If I don't come back, you'll come back, Rebecca said fiercely. You always come back. I wished I had her faith. Outside, the storm tried to kill me before Roberto could. Wind that cut like knives, snow that blinded, cold that made my bones ache. But there, 20 feet away, stood my cousin. He looked older, prison having added lines to his face and gray to his hair, but his eyes were the same, intelligent, calculating, absolutely without mercy. Michael, he said, having to shout over the wind, you look well for a dead man. Federal protection agrees with me. Temporary protection. Everything's temporary except family. You killed Diana Wilson. I killed a lie. Diana Wilson never existed. He stepped closer, and I saw he wasn't armed, or didn't appear to be. The Zurich accounts, Michael. 23 million. More than enough for both of us to disappear forever. There is no both of us. No. You think this ends with my death or yours? You think the family forgives, forgets? There's always another cousin, another soldier, another generation raised on stories of betrayal. He pulled out a tablet showing bank screens. But with this money, I can call them off, permanently. Buy your freedom and my retirement. You'd never retire. I'm tired, Michael. 10 years of hunting you, 3 in prison, a lifetime of violence. I'm tired. Give me the accounts, and we both walk away. It was almost believable. The exhaustion in his voice, the age in his eyes, almost. I need guarantees. You need to not freeze to death. Neither of us has long out here. He gestured to the cabin. Your boys are watching. Wave to them. Show them you're alive. I turned, saw faces in the window, raised my hand. That's when Roberto moved. Not toward me, toward the cabin. A device in his hand, thumb on a trigger. Insurance, he said. Incendiary charges on all four corners. You run, you fight, you do anything but cooperate, your family burns. You son of a... Careful. My mother was your aunt, remember? Now the accounts. I pulled out my phone, numb fingers struggling with the screen. I need Wi-Fi. Use mine. He held out a hotspot device. I connected, pulled up the Swiss bank portal I hadn't accessed in a decade. The credentials still worked, of course they did. Roberto would have confirmed that before coming. Password's your birthday, I lied, typing Angela's instead. Our grandmother's birthday, Roberto corrected. I'm not stupid, Michael. I entered the right password. The accounts appeared $23.4 million, accrued interest over 10 years. Transfer it, Roberto ordered, showing me an account number. Once I do, what stops you from killing us anyway? Economics. Killing you costs money, bribes, cleanup, more years looking over my shoulder for federal retaliation. Letting you live costs nothing. I'm a businessman, Michael. This is business. My phone rang. Rebecca. Let me answer. Speaker. I answered. Rebecca's voice, steady despite everything. The marshals are 15 minutes out. Helicopter. 15 minutes in this? Roberto laughed. They'll crash before they find us. But it gave me an idea. I'll transfer half now, I said. You leave. When we're safe, confirmed by the marshals, I transfer the rest. No. Then kill us. But you get nothing. He considered, snow collecting on his shoulders like death's dandruff. 3/4, final offer. Deal. I initiated the transfer $17.5 million, sliding from my control to his in seconds. Numbers on a screen determining whether my family lived or died. Done, I said. Roberto checked his phone, smiled. Good. The rest in 24 hours, or I release your location to every enemy you've ever made. Agreed. He backed away toward shadows where his men waited. You know, Michael, we could have run the world together. We could have, but you chose blood. And you chose betrayal. I chose justice. Same thing, different perspective. He paused at the tree line. 24 hours. Don't make me come back. Then he was gone, swallowed by the storm. I stood there for a moment, snow building on my shoulders, processing what had just happened. Then Rebecca was there, pulling me inside, checking for injuries, crying and cursing in equal measure. You gave him the money? Most of it. Will he honor the deal? For 24 hours? After that? I shrugged. We'll be someone else, somewhere else. James was on his laptop. The marshals really are coming, 10 minutes now. Then we have 10 minutes to decide. Decide what? Whether we run again or make a stand. Thomas emerged from the basement, Buddy at his side. I vote stand, I'm tired of running. You're 14, Rebecca said. You don't get a vote. I'm 14 and I've had 3 names and 4 addresses in 6 months. I get a vote. James nodded. Stand. Here. Now. End this. Rebecca looked at me. Can we? End this? Roberto thinks he won. He'll take the money, lay low, plan to come back for the rest. But he's forgetting something. What? I learned from the best. From him. From Uncle Tommy. From the whole Torino playbook. I pulled out my encrypted phone. And unlike him, I've got the federal government on my side. The helicopter arrived in impossible time, landing in our field despite the storm. Patricia Stone herself stepped out, looking like an avenging angel in tactical gear. You should have told me, she said without preamble. Told you what? That you still had access to the accounts. We could have used that. You're going to. Roberto just took $17 million in stolen money across international lines. That's federal wire fraud, money laundering, and about 6 other crimes. Patricia smiled coldly. Plus violation of his bail conditions. He's not supposed to access any financial accounts. Exactly. We've been monitoring his communications since he made bail. This gives us everything. She turned to her team. Track that transfer. I want every account it touches frozen within the hour. What about us? Rebecca asked. You're coming with us, all of you. Secure facility until Roberto's in custody. And then? Then you testify. Again. But this time, we've got him dead to rights. As we packed again, always again, I thought about Roberto's words. Family is everything. He was right. But he'd missed the point. Family isn't blood. It's choice. I chose the woman who'd forgiven the unforgivable. I chose the boys who'd adapted to impossible circumstances. I chose the life where we might be scared, but we're together. Roberto chose money and revenge. In the end, that's why I'd win. The helicopter lifted off, our cabin disappearing in the storm below. Somewhere out there, Roberto was probably celebrating his victory, not knowing the FBI was already closing in. "Where are we going?" Thomas asked. "Somewhere safe," Patricia answered. "For how long?" "Until it's over." "When will that be?" Patricia looked at me, and I saw something I'd never seen in her eyes before. Hope. "Soon," she said. Very soon. Chapter 8. The text came at 3 a.m., 6 days after Roberto had taken the money. "Your cousin was arrested, but I'm still here." Ryan Mitchell, supposed to be dead, standing in our driveway in the pre-dawn darkness, visible in the security lights of our secure federal facility outside Anchorage. I watched him through the window, this ghost who wouldn't stay buried, this corrupt marshal who'd sold us out for money and was now here for what? Revenge. More money? Sport? "Don't go out there," Rebecca whispered beside me. She'd been sleeping fitfully, nightmares about fire and snow plaguing her since the cabin incident. "If I don't, he comes in. Let him. The facility has guards, who he trained, who he knows, who might even be working with him." I checked the Glock, though we both knew this wouldn't end with a simple shootout. "Wake the boys, quietly. Get them to the panic room." "David, please." She kissed me, fierce and desperate. "Come back. Always do." Outside, the Alaska cold hit like a slap. Mitchell stood by our car, casual as a neighbor borrowing sugar. "Heard Roberto got picked up in Seattle," he said conversationally. $17 million in illegal transfers. That was smart, Michael. Using his greed against him. "You're supposed to be dead." Reports of my death were greatly exaggerated. Roberto thought he was killing me, but he killed my cellmate instead. Poor guy looked enough like me in the dark. He lit a cigarette, the flame briefly illuminating his scarred face. I've been underground since then, waiting. For what? For Roberto to make his move, for you to be vulnerable, for the perfect moment. He exhaled smoke into the frigid air. Which is now. The facility is surrounded by federal agents. 3 agents, actually. Budget cuts. And one of them, Morrison, owes me favors from the old days. My blood chilled. "What do you want, Mitchell?" "What's left of the Zurich money? 6 million, right? Roberto got 17, means there's 6 left. It's frozen. FBI locked it all down." "No, they locked down Roberto's accounts. The source account, your account, still has the balance." He pulled out a phone, showed me banking screens he shouldn't have access to. "See? Just sitting there, waiting. Even if I wanted to, I couldn't. Your son James, or Michael, or whatever he's calling himself today. Bright kid, been hacking into federal databases, upgrading security systems, playing cyber vigilante." Mitchell smiled coldly. "Also been breaking about 40 federal laws. One word from me, and he's in juvenile detention until he's 21. "You're threatening my kid?" "I'm motivating you. Transfer the money or I destroy your son's future. And after I transfer it, I disappear. Forever. You never see me again. Never hear from me again. I become a ghost story you tell around campfires." Movement in my peripheral vision, James at his window, laptop in hand, probably recording everything. Smart kid, too smart for his own good. "I need time to access the accounts," I said. "You've got 1 hour. I'll be waiting at the Grove, you know the one. Come alone, bring confirmation of transfer." He dropped his cigarette, crushed it. "Oh, and Michael? Your neighbor, George Patterson, is flying in today. Noon flight from Seattle. Be a shame if his plane had problems." You touch him. 1 hour. He walked away, disappearing into the darkness beyond the security lights. I stood there for a moment, calculating odds, measuring risks, weighing lives, Inside, my family was assembled in the living room, fully dressed despite the hour. They'd heard everything through James's surveillance system. "We're not giving him the money," Rebecca said immediately. "We don't have a choice." "There's always a choice. You taught me that." James looked up from his laptop. "Actually, there might be another option. No hacking. Mitchell's right, you've already taken too many risks. Not hacking, just creative banking." He showed me his screen. Multiple bank windows, code repositories, what looked like financial modeling software. "I've been studying the Zurich accounts, the way they're structured, the security protocols. The FBI froze Roberto's transfers, but they didn't freeze the source because they wanted to track any other attempts to access it. So we give Mitchell exactly what he wants, a transfer of $6 million. He grinned, that dangerous smile that reminded me too much of young Michael Torino. "We just don't mention that the FBI will reverse it within minutes and track his location when he tries to access it. He'll know. He's too smart. Not if we do it right. Look." His fingers flew across the keyboard. "We transfer to a specific type of intermediary account. It'll show as completed, confirmed, irreversible. But these accounts have a 24-hour settlement period. During that time, the FBI can intervene." "Exactly." Rebecca looked between us. "This is insane. We're planning to con a corrupt federal agent with our 17-year-old son's banking scheme?" "You got a better idea?" I asked. Thomas spoke up from the corner where he'd been silent. "What about Mr. Patterson? Mitchell threatened him." "I'll call Lois. She'll redirect his flight." "And if Mitchell finds out? Then we improvise." Rebecca laughed, bitter and exhausted. "Our family motto, the Mitchells, we improvise." "Thompson," Thomas corrected. "We're the Thompsons." "Wilson," James added. "We were the Wilsons first." "Does it matter?" I asked. "We're us. Whatever name they slap on us, we're still us." The next 50 minutes were the longest of my life. James worked his technical magic while I contacted Lois about George. Rebecca packed bags, always packing, always ready to run. Thomas sat with Buddy, both of them sensing the tension, ready for violence. "It's ready," James announced. "The transfer's set up. All you have to do is execute it from your phone." "And the FBI?" "Already alerted through back channels. They'll be monitoring the second you hit send." I looked at my family, my brilliant, brave, broken family, and made a decision. "You're all coming with me." Mitchell said alone. "Mitchell's planning to kill me whether I pay him or not. At least together we have a chance." "Dad," Thomas started, but I cut him off. "We do this as a family, or we don't do it at all." Rebecca checked her .38. "Together." James grabbed his laptop bag. "Together." Thomas stood, all 14 years of him trying to look tough. "Together." Even Buddy barked agreement. The grove was a mile from the facility, a cluster of pines that provided cover from prying eyes. Mitchell was already there, stamping his feet against the cold. "I said alone," he called out as we approached. "Plans change. Then the deal's off." "No, it's not." I held up my phone. "Because you want this money more than you want us dead. You kill us, you get nothing. You let us live, you get 6 million reasons to disappear forever." He considered, then laughed. "Fair point. Make the transfer." I pulled up the account James had prepared, entered the routing numbers Mitchell provided. My finger hovered over the confirm button. "Before I do this," I said, "I need a guarantee. You disappear, forever. No revenge, no comeback, no selling our location to the highest bidder. Scout's honor. You were never a scout." "No, but I was a marshal. And despite everything, that used to mean something to me." For a moment, his mask slipped, and I saw exhaustion that matched my own. "I'm 53 years old, Michael. I've been corrupt for 10 of those years, but the other 43, I was good once. Maybe with this money I can find something like that again. Redemption through theft? Stranger things have happened." I hit confirm. The screen showed transfer complete $6 million. Mitchell checked his phone, smiled. "Pleasure doing business." He turned to leave, and that's when everything went wrong. The shot came from the trees, not aimed at us, but at Mitchell. He spun, clutching his shoulder, blood spreading across his jacket. "FBI, nobody move!" Agents poured from the forest, weapons drawn, but these weren't Patricia's people. Different jackets, different protocols. Drop your weapons? The lead agent looked young, nervous. All of you. We're in witness protection, I said, hands raised. Check with Patricia Stone. Patricia Stone's been relieved of duty. I'm Agent Richards, taking over this case. Relieved? Why? Corruption investigation. Seems someone's been transferring money from protected accounts. James. My brilliant son had triggered something, some algorithm, some alert. The FBI thought we were stealing our own money. Mitchell laughed, blood bubbling on his lips. Oh, this is perfect. You try to con me and you con yourselves instead. Nobody's conning anyone, I said, but Richards wasn't listening. Everyone's coming with us. Sort this out at the office. That's when Buddy decided to help. The dog, trained by Thomas to protect, saw men with guns surrounding his family and acted. He lunged at the nearest agent, all 90 pounds of protective fury. The agent panicked, swung his weapon toward Buddy. Thomas screamed, "No!" and ran toward his dog. The clearing erupted in chaos. Rebecca pulled Thomas back. James dropped to the ground, laptop clutched to his chest. I moved toward the agent, threatening Buddy. Mitchell used the confusion to roll behind a tree. "Stand down!" Richard shouted. "Everyone stand down!" But adrenaline and fear had taken over. Agents were shouting contradictory orders. Buddy was barking and snarling. My family was scattering, and somewhere in the chaos, Mitchell disappeared. A gunshot. Then another. Not from the agents, from the trees. Different angle, different weapon. Agent Richards went down, clutching his leg. "Sniper!" someone yelled. We hit the ground as bullets whined overhead. Not random shots targeted, professional. Someone was picking off the agents. "The trees!" I pointed to a cluster of pines. "Get to the trees!" We crawled through snow and chaos, Buddy heroically covering our retreat, snapping at anyone who came close. Rebecca had Thomas. I had James, and somehow we made it to cover. "Who's shooting?" Rebecca gasped. "No idea." James opened his laptop, fingers flying. "I'm into the facility's security cameras. There!" The screen showed 3 figures in tactical gear moving through the forest. Professional formation, military precision. "Roberto's people?" Rebecca asked. "Roberto's in custody." "Then who?" My encrypted phone rang. Unknown number. "Michael Torino?" The voice was accented Russian, maybe Ukrainian. "My employer would like to speak with you about some money you owe." "I don't owe anyone. $23 million, stolen from the Torino family. My employer purchased that debt. With interest, you now owe $31 million. That's insane." "That's business. You have 48 hours to pay, or we collect from your family, piece by piece." The line went dead. "Dad?" James's voice was small. "What do we do?" Before I could answer, Mitchell appeared, bloody but mobile, gun in hand. "Looks like we're both screwed," he said, leaning against a tree. "Those are Bratva, Russian mob. They bought your debt from what's left of the Torino family. Why help us?" "Because if you die, my money disappears. The transfer hasn't cleared yet, right, kid?" He looked at James. "You set up some kind of delayed transfer, thinking you were clever." James nodded reluctantly. "So we all live or we all die." Mitchell checked his weapon. "I count 6 agents down, 3 still mobile." "The Bratva team has us flanked. Our only option is to make it back to the facility." "Trust you?" Rebecca laughed bitterly. "You sold us out, and now I'm buying us back. Move!" We ran through the forest, Buddy leading, Mitchell covering our rear despite his wound. Behind us, gunfire erupted as the remaining FBI agents engaged the Bratva team. The facility appeared through the trees, but the gate was closed, locked down. "James," I said, "can you—" "Already on it." He typed frantically on his phone. "And got it!" The gate swung open. We tumbled through, Mitchell last, slamming it behind us. Inside, more agents were mobilizing, but they looked confused, leaderless. Patricia Stone's absence left a vacuum. "Secure room," Mitchell directed, leading us despite having no authority. "Move!" We barricaded ourselves in a reinforced conference room. Through the windows, we could see the Bratva team approaching, no longer trying to hide. "They'll breach within minutes," Mitchell said, fashioning a bandage for his shoulder. "Why are you helping us?" Thomas asked. Mitchell looked at my youngest son, something shifting in his expression. Kid, I've done a lot of wrong in my life. Sold out good people for money, got people killed for greed. Maybe this is my chance to balance the scales a little. Redemption through violence? I asked, echoing our earlier conversation. Like I said, stranger things have happened. The lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in red. They're in the building, James whispered, laptop showing security feeds. Mitchell checked his ammunition. Okay, here's the plan. I hold them here. You get to the motor pool, take the armored SUV, get out. We're not leaving you. Yes, you are. He looked at me directly. Take care of your family, Michael. That's all that matters in the end. Before we could argue, the door exploded inward. Mitchell moved faster than I thought possible for a wounded man, putting himself between us and the breach, his weapon barking defiance. Go! He screamed. Now! We ran. Through corridors painted emergency red, past confused agents toward the motor pool. Behind us, gunfire and shouting, Mitchell's last stand buying us seconds we couldn't waste. The armored SUV was there, keys in Patricia's protocol box that James hacked in seconds. Everyone in? I drove while James navigated, Rebecca watched our six, and Thomas held Buddy, both of them shaking. Where are we going? Rebecca asked. The airport. There's a charter Patricia set up for emergencies. And then? I don't know. Away. Again. This ends, Rebecca said firmly. No more running. We end this. How? The money. All of it. We give it back. To who? Roberto's in custody. The Torino family's destroyed. The Russians, to the victims, the families of people the Torinos killed. Make it public. Make it legal. Make it impossible for anyone to claim we owe them anything. It was brilliant. It was insane. It was the only option that made sense. James, can you... Already working on it. I need Wi-Fi in about an hour. The airport appeared ahead, small planes lined up like toys. Our charter was at the end, a twin-engine Cessna with a nervous-looking pilot. Mr. Thompson, we need to leave, now. There's weather coming and men with guns behind us, we know. We boarded quickly, Buddy included despite regulations. As we lifted off, I saw vehicles converging on the airport. Too late. Where to? The pilot asked. I looked at my family. Rebecca, brave and unbreaking. James, brilliant and determined. Thomas, young but strong. Even Buddy, loyal beyond reason. Anywhere but here, I said. As Alaska disappeared below us, James worked his magic, fingers flying across his laptop. I'm setting up a press release. Witness Protection Family donates laundered millions to Victims Fund. CNN will eat this up. And the Russians? Can't collect a debt that's been publicly given away. Bad optics, bad business. That simple? Nothing simple, but it might be enough. Rebecca took my hand. What about Mitchell? I thought about the corrupt marshal who'd sold us out, then died protecting us. He made his choice. The right one in the end. Maybe that counts for something. Thomas spoke up. Are we done running now? I looked at my youngest son, forced to grow up in motel rooms and safe houses, and made a decision. Yeah, we're done running. Promise? Promise. 2 hours later, as we landed in Seattle, the news broke. $23 million donated to a victims fund. The media went crazy. The FBI issued statements. The Russians, faced with public scrutiny, melted back into the shadows. Patricia Stone called from wherever they'd stashed her during the investigation. That was either brilliant or stupid, she said. Both. You know this makes you useless to us now. No money to track, no connections to exploit. You're just another family in witness protection. Good. There's paperwork, debriefs, then you disappear. For real this time. New names, new lives, but no more looking over your shoulders. Roberto's going away for life. The Russians won't touch you now too public. You're free. Free. The word felt foreign. Thank you, Patricia. Don't thank me. Thank your son. His digital trail led us to 3 other corrupt marshals. He's a hero, even if no one will ever know it. After she hung, I looked at my family in the airport lounge. Rebecca was buying coffee. James was showing Thomas something on his laptop. Buddy was charming a little girl into sharing her sandwich. Normal. We looked normal. Ready for our next adventure? Rebecca asked, handing me coffee. What did you have in mind? I hear Oregon's nice. Small town. Real names, well, as real as they get for us. Maybe you could actually drive a truck. I could counsel kids. The boys could finish school without gunfire. Sounds boring. Sounds perfect. 6 weeks later, we were the Anderson family of Bend, Oregon. No numbers after our names, no handlers checking in, no Roberto hunting us, just a family that had survived the unsurvivable. Ryan Mitchell was posthumously cleared of corruption charges when evidence showed he'd been working undercover his whole time in prison. His family received his full pension and a commendation. Sometimes lies become truth, if you believe them hard enough. Roberto Torino got life without parole. During his sentencing, he looked at where I would have been sitting if I'd testified. But I wasn't there. I was coaching Thomas's little league team. The Russians never came. Bad business, they decided, chasing ghosts who'd given away their prize. And me? David Anderson, formerly Robert Mitchell, formerly David Thompson, formerly Clark Wilson, originally Michael Torino. I drive a truck, short hauls, home every night. Rebecca counsels Atris kids, understanding their trauma better than they know. James got into MIT full scholarship, clean record, future bright as the kid himself. Thomas plays guitar in a band called The Witnesses. We have dinner together every Sunday. Real names, real food, real conversations about real things. No one's hunting us. No one's threatening us. No one knows who we used to be. Sometimes I dream about Angela. Sometimes Roberto. Sometimes the family I destroyed to save my own. But mostly, I don't dream at all. And that, after everything, is the real gift of witness protection. The chance to stop running. The chance to stop looking over your shoulder. The chance to just live. End of part 2. In Alaska, in the grove where Mitchell made his last stand, snow covers the blood and bullet casings. The FBI facility has been decommissioned, the whole incident classified beyond classification. But sometimes, locals say, on cold nights when the northern lights dance, you can hear gunfire echoing through the trees. The last stand of a corrupt man trying to do one good thing. The final battle of a family that refused to break. Ghost stories, probably. But in witness protection, all stories become ghost stories eventually. Even ours. Chapter 9. Alaska, March 2023. The letter sat on my kitchen table for 3 hours before I found the courage to open it. Diana's handwriting hadn't changed, still that careful teacher's script that used to leave notes on the refrigerator about parent conferences and grocery lists. Now it came from the Federal Correctional Institution in SeaTac, Washington, where she'd been for the past 18 months. "Dad, you gonna read it or just stare at it?" James asked, pouring himself coffee. 20 years old now, my eldest had grown into his fake names like they were tailored suits. He'd legally changed his name to James Mitchell last year, said if he was going to be nobody, might as well be nobody officially. "Give me a minute." Outside our cabin window, Alaska stretched endless and white. We'd stayed here after the Bratva incident, after Mitchell's death, after donating the money. The marshal said we could relocate anywhere, but Thomas, 16 now and taller than me, had said something that stuck. "We've run from enough places. Maybe it's time to stay." So we stayed, Robert Mitchell and Sons, running a small trucking company out of Anchorage. 3 trucks, 5 employees, and a life so normal it sometimes felt like wearing someone else's clothes. I opened the letter. "Michael, I know that's not your name anymore, but it's the name of the man I fell in love with, so I'll use it. I've been sober for 387 days. Not from alcohol, from anger. Dr. Morrison says anger can be an addiction too, and I was mainlining it for 2 years. I know the boys don't want to hear from me. I understand. What I did was unforgivable. But I need you to know that I spend every day trying to become someone worthy of forgiveness anyway. I get out in 6 months. Early release for good behavior and completing every program they offer. I don't expect anything from you or the boys. I just wanted you to know I'm trying. Also, Father O'Brien has been visiting. Remember how I used to drag you to church in Nebraska? Funny how prison is where I finally found faith. I'm not asking for anything. I just needed to say I'm sorry. Not for the affair, though I'm sorry for that too, but for almost getting our children killed. That's the sin I'll carry forever. Diana, or whatever name I'm supposed to use now. Mom? Thomas had appeared, reading over my shoulder. Kid moved like a ghost these days. All his music and poetry hadn't made him any less observant. Yeah. She okay? Says she is. He sat down, Buddy at his feet. The dog was gray around the muzzle now, but still acted like Thomas's shadow. You gonna write back? Should I? I don't know. He pulled out his phone, showed me a video. This is from her victim impact statement at Roberto's resentencing. Diana appeared on the screen, thinner, older, wearing orange, but her voice was strong. I was lonely, stupid, and selfish. Roberto Torino exploited that, yes, but I opened the door. I invited the devil in because he spoke German and told me I was special. My husband spent 10 years protecting us from monsters, and I handed those monsters our address. I'm not a victim. I'm a collaborator who got caught. The video ended. She sent that to you? I asked. To James. He showed me. Thomas scratched Buddy's ears. I think I want to see her. You sure? No, but I want to, if that makes sense. It did. Everything about our family was wanting to want things, wanting to want normal, wanting to want forgiveness, wanting to want a future that didn't involve checking rear views for threats. James's laptop chimed. Speaking of complicated relationships, guess who just emailed? Emma? She's graduating pre-med in May. Wants to know if she can visit. Emma Rodriguez, or Sarah Collins, now had been writing James for 2 years. Long letters about medical school and missing Spokane, and whether people like them could ever have normal relationships. Invite her, I said. Really? Kid, you're 20. You don't need my permission to have a girl visit. It's not just a visit, Dad. She's interviewing for residency programs. University of Alaska has a spot. She'd move here? For you? For us, maybe. Or for the adventure. Or because Alaska's the kind of place where nobody asks too many questions about your past. My phone rang. Patricia Stone, calling from whatever desk they'd chained her to after the corruption investigation, cleared her. Robert, we have a situation. Robert. Even after 2 years, the name felt like wearing someone else's shoes. Roberto? Still in ADX Florence. No, this is about Salvatore, Roberto's brother. He just got early release. My blood chilled. How? He had 15 years left. Compassionate release. Stage 4 cancer. Doctors give him 3 months, maybe 6. And he's coming for us. Unknown. But Robert Michael, whoever you are today, he's old school. The kind who believes in deathbed revenge. So we run again? Or you stay and face whatever comes? You're not in official protection anymore. That ended when you donated the money. You're just citizens now. Citizens. Free to live, free to die, free to make our own choices without the government's safety net. Thanks for the warning. After I hung up, I looked at my sons. Salvatore Torino's out. Cancer. Might come for us, might not. Thomas shrugged. If he comes, he comes. I'm tired of being scared of old dying men. James was already typing. I'll upgrade the security system. Motion sensors, cameras, the works. Or, I said, surprising myself, we could go see him. They both stared at me. Go see the man who wants us dead? James asked. He's dying. Maybe he wants something else. Closure. Absolution. Who knows? I stood up. I'm tired of waiting for the next shoe to drop. Let's go drop it ourselves. That's insane, Thomas said. That's proactive, I corrected. What about Mom's letter? Thomas asked. I looked at Diana's careful handwriting, then at my son's, brave, broken, but unbreakable. One thing at a time. First, we deal with Salvatore, then I folded the letter, put it in my pocket. Then we figure out if this family has any pieces left worth putting back together. George Patterson chose that moment to walk through our door, because in Alaska, knocking was optional between neighbors. 76 now and tough as permafrost, he'd moved up here permanently after the Bratva attack. Said he was too old for Seattle rain. Family meeting? He asked, helping himself to coffee. Family crisis, James corrected. Same thing with you people. He sat down heavily. So what's the crisis today? Salvatore Torino's out, dying, might come for us. George sipped his coffee thoughtfully. You know, in 40 years of law enforcement, I learned something. The dying don't follow the same rules as the living. They're either at their most dangerous or their most honest. No middle ground. Which do you think Salvatore is? Only one way to find out. He pulled out his phone. I still have contacts. Can find out what hospital he's in, probably New Jersey. You really thinking of visiting? Yeah. Then I'm coming with you. George. Son, I'm 76 years old, survived 3 heart attacks and 2 ex-wives. You think I'm scared of some dying mobster? Thomas laughed. Road trip to confront our would-be assassin. Why not? I'll stay here, James said. Someone needs to watch the business, and Emma's flying in Thursday. You sure? Dad, I've been preparing for threats my whole life. I can handle a few days alone. Looking at him confident, capable, nothing like the scared 17-year-old who'd fled Nebraska, I realized he was right. My boys had grown up while I was busy looking over my shoulder. Okay. Thomas, George, and I go to New Jersey. James holds down the fort. We find Salvatore, have whatever conversation needs having, and come home. And Mom? Thomas asked quietly. Your mom. I pulled out her letter again. Your mom waited 18 months to write. She can wait a little longer for an answer. That night, I sat outside watching the northern lights dance across the sky. Green and gold ribbons that looked like heaven showing off. Diana would have loved them. The old Diana, before Berlin and Bruce and bullets. My phone buzzed. Unknown number, New Jersey area code. Michael Torino? The voice was weak, raspy. Salvatore. Hello, Sal. You know I'm dying. I heard. I want to see you. I was already planning to come. A long pause, then a sound that might have been a laugh. Always one step ahead, cousin. Just like your father. My father died when I was 12. No, he died when you were 8. When you were 12, we just put him in the ground. What? So many secrets, Michael. So many things you never knew. Come see me. Bring your boys if you want. I have no quarrel with children. Why should I trust you? Because I'm dying alone in a hospital room, pissing in a bag, counting morphine drops. Because revenge takes energy I don't have. Because maybe, just maybe, I want to die with one less sin on my conscience. Which sin? Not killing you when I had the chance. He hung up. Thomas had been listening from the doorway. We're still going? Now more than ever. Why? I looked at my son, 16, talented, carrying scars he shouldn't have. Because running from dying men is how we ended up here in the first place. Maybe it's time to stop running and start understanding. Understanding what? Why we were running in the first place. Chapter 10. New Jersey, March 2023. The hospital smelled like death wearing too much disinfectant. Salvatore Torino lay in bed looking like a skeleton dressed in a hospital gown. The man who'd once run Newark's waterfront, who'd ordered dozens of deaths with a nod, who'd made federal prosecutors sweat through their suits, now he couldn't lift a cup of water without shaking. Michael, he wheezed, you look old. You look worse. He laughed, which turned into a cough that brought up blood. Fair. The boys? Thomas stepped forward. George stayed by the door, hand near his concealed carry just in case. This is Thomas, my youngest. He has Angela's eyes. I stiffened. You didn't know Angela. I knew her better than you think. Sit. We have things to discuss before I die, and the doctors say that could be any minute. We sat. The heart monitor beeped steadily, the only honest thing in a room full of liars. Your father, Salvatore began, didn't die in that warehouse fire. I was there. I saw. You saw what we wanted you to see, a body, burnt beyond recognition. But Antonio Torino lived another 4 years, Michael, in witness protection. The room spun. What? Your father was FBI, deep cover for 6 years. When things got too hot, they faked his death, relocated him. He died for real when you were 12 in Phoenix under the name Anthony Torres. You're lying. Salvatore pointed to a manila envelope on the nightstand. FBI files. Declassified last year. Your friend Patricia Stone thought you should know, but couldn't bring herself to tell you. I opened the envelope with numb fingers. Photos of my father, older, standing outside a house in Arizona, documents with FBI letterhead, testimony transcripts. Why didn't he take me? Because Tommy Torino loved you like his own son. Your father knew you'd be safe with Tommy, safer than in witness protection, so he left you. He abandoned me. He saved you, until you followed in his footsteps and testified yourself. Salvatore coughed again. Funny how patterns repeat. Thomas was reading over my shoulder. So my grandfather was a rat too? He was a hero, Salvatore corrected. Took down 3 crime families from the inside. Your grandmother, though she was true family, Francesca Torino, my father's sister, making you actual blood, not just adopted family. Why tell me this now? Because I'm dying with enough sins. Keeping this secret doesn't need to be one of them. He reached for water, hands shaking. Thomas helped him drink. Your boy's kind. That's not a Torino trait. It's a Wilson trait. Or Thompson. Or Mitchell. Whatever we are now. You're Torino. Blood doesn't lie, even when everything else does. Salvatore lay back, exhausted from talking. Roberto knows, by the way, about your father. He's known for years. Is that why he came after us? Revenge for my father, not just for me? Roberto came after you for money. Everything else was just excuse. He closed his eyes. I'm tired, Michael. But before you go, your wife, Diana. What about her? She writes to Roberto, from prison. My blood went cold. What? Started 6 months ago, apologies mostly, but also questions. About you, your family, your past. He doesn't respond, but she keeps writing. Why are you telling me this? Because a woman who writes to the man who tried to kill her children is either insane or planning something. Either way, you should know. George finally spoke from the doorway. We should go. Salvatore opened his eyes one last time. The boy Thomas. He has talent? Music. He writes songs. Good. Art is better than artillery. He pulled out something from under his pillow, a ring. Old gold with a ruby that caught the light. This was your grandmother's. Your real grandmother, Francesca. Give it to your boy. Let something good come from the Torino name. I took the ring. It was warm, like it held decades of secrets. Salvatore. Go, Michael. Let me die in peace. And know this, I forgive you. For testifying. For surviving. For being better than the rest of us. We left him there, monitors beeping, death waiting patiently in the corner. In the rental car, Thomas held the ring up to the light. It's beautiful. It's blood money. No, George said from the back seat. It's just a ring. The blood, the money, that's all story we add. Thing about family heirlooms is they mean what we decide they mean. I want to see her, Thomas said suddenly. Mom, I want to see her. Because of what Salvatore said. Because she's writing to Roberto. Because she's sick or planning something. Because she's my mother, and I need to know which one she is. We drove to SeaTac in silence. New Jersey to Washington. 3,000 miles of America between who we were and who we were becoming. The federal facility looked like a community college that had given up on hope. Diana was waiting in the visiting room, thinner, grayer, but with eyes that seemed clearer than they'd been in years. Thomas, she breathed. You came? Hi, Mom. They didn't hug, the guards wouldn't allow it, but Thomas sat across from her while George and I watched from nearby. You look like your father, she said. Which one? I've had 3. She flinched. The real one. They were all real, Mom. Clark Wilson was real when he taught me to ride a bike. David Thompson was real when he held me during nightmares. Robert Mitchell is real when he drives to my gigs even though he hates my music. I know what you meant. Thomas pulled out something, a USB drive. I wrote you a song. The guards checked the drive, then let Diana plug it into the visiting room computer. Thomas's voice filled the space, raw and honest. Mother, you were lonely. I understand Father was a ghost, wearing other men's names. You reached for something solid, found shifting sand. Now we're all burning in someone else's flames. Diana cried silently through all 4 minutes. I don't forgive you, Thomas said when it ended. Not yet, but I'm trying to understand you. There's a difference. I know. Why are you writing to Roberto? Her face went still. How did you... Salvatore told us, the dying don't lie. I write because I need him to know what he destroyed. Every letter I tell him about what he took from us. The life we had, the family we were. I need him to know it was real, what he killed. He doesn't read them. I know, but I need to write them. Dr. Morrison says it's part of processing, accepting. She looked at me for the first time. Hello, Michael. Diana. Is that my name? I forget sometimes. You're whoever you choose to be. I choose to be nobody. It's easier. A guard announced visiting hours were ending. Will you come again? Diana asked Thomas. Maybe, if you stop writing to Roberto. I can't promise that. Then I can't promise to visit. We left her there, in her orange jumpsuit and clear eyes, writing letters to a man who'd never read them. On the flight back to Alaska, Thomas stared out the window. She's different. Prison changes people. No, it's more than that. She's empty. Like she poured everything out and hasn't figured out what to put back in. Maybe that's what redemption looks like, George said. Empty spaces waiting to be filled with better things. James was waiting at the Anchorage airport with Emma Rodriguez Sarah Collins now, but she'd always be Emma to us. She was prettier than her photos, with eyes that had seen too much but still smiled anyway. Mr. Mitchell, she said, shaking my hand. James has told me everything about you. Then you know to run. I know to stay. Running's what got us all here in the first place. Smart girl. That night we had dinner like a normal family. James and Emma cooking together, their movements synchronized like they'd been doing it for years. Thomas playing guitar in the corner, Buddy harmonizing with occasional howls. George telling stories about his cop days that were probably half true. This is nice, Emma said. Broken but nice. That should be our family motto, Thomas suggested. The Mitchells, broken but nice. The Torinos, I corrected, surprising myself. We're all Torinos, whether we like it or not. Might as well own it. The Torinos, still standing, James offered. The Torinos, fuck around and find out, Thomas suggested. Language, I said automatically. Everyone laughed. Here we were, in Alaska, wearing fake names, hiding from shadows, but laughing around a dinner table. Maybe that was enough. Maybe that was everything. My phone buzzed. Patricia Stone. Salvatore Torino died an hour ago. Peaceful. Final words were, tell Michael the books are balanced. I shared the news. Nobody seemed sad or happy, just complete. Another chapter closed. What now? Emma asked. Now we live, I said. We just live. But living, I was learning, was the hardest thing of all. Chapter 11. Alaska, June 2024. The wedding was small, intentional, and perfect in its imperfection. James and Emma exchanged vows in our backyard, mountains as witnesses, 20 guests who'd all been vetted by the marshals even though we weren't technically under protection anymore. Old habits die hard, especially when they keep you alive. Diana sat in the back row, on supervised release for 3 hours. She'd been out for 8 months, living in Seattle, working at a crisis center for domestic violence victims. We'd spoken exactly 3 times, each conversation like diffusing a bomb with words. She looks good, Thomas said, standing beside me as James's best man. Diana did look good, healthy, present, like someone who'd been broken down to molecules and rebuilt from scratch. She wore a simple blue dress, not trying to impress, just trying to be. You may kiss the bride, the officiant said, and James kissed Emma like she was air, and he'd been drowning. The reception was in Mary Josephine's community center. She'd insisted, said it was tradition for elders to host young love. At 70 now, Mary had become the grandmother none of us had, teaching us how to survive both Alaska winters and family disasters. Beautiful ceremony, Patricia Stone said, surprising everyone by showing up. Retirement suits me, don't you think? She'd quit the marshals 6 months ago, moved to Portland, started teaching criminal justice. But she came for the wedding because some bonds transcend job descriptions. George Patterson gave a toast that made everyone cry. To James and Emma, proof that sometimes running toward each other is the only running worth doing. Harold Kim had flown in from Nebraska, older but still sharp. "Your neighbor misses you," he told me. "That young couple who bought your house found your panic room, thought it was a sex dungeon. Jesus." The realtor had to explain. Now they use it for wine storage. Diana approached during the father-son dance while James and I stumbled through a waltz Emma had insisted on. "He looks happy," she said. "He is." "Are you?" "I'm something. Content, maybe. Accepting. That's more than most get." She watched Thomas playing guitar with his band, the Northern Lights, providing wedding music. "He's talented. Gets it from you. The artistic side. The stubborn side, too. That's both of us." We stood there, two people who'd been married for 9 years, lived a lie for 10, and didn't know each other at all. "I remarried," she said suddenly. The words hit like cold water. "What?" "Father Michael O'Brien. He left the priesthood. We married 3 months ago." "You married a priest?" "Ex-priest. He understands redemption, understanding sin. We're good for each other." I didn't know what to say. "Congratulations? How dare you? Thank you for moving on." "Are you happy?" I asked finally. "I'm trying to be. Michael, sorry, Robert, whoever you are, I need you to know something." "Diana, please, let me say this." She took a breath. "I loved you. The real you, whoever that was. Not Clark Wilson or David Thompson or any of the others. I loved the man who checked locks 3 times, who watched mirrors like they held secrets, who held our boys when they were sick. I just didn't know that man was built on ghosts. We all are. No, you were. I was just built on loneliness. There's a difference." Before I could respond, Roberto called. Not from prison, that would have been impossible, but a video call from his lawyer's office projected on the community center's screen because James, brilliant James, had hacked the system as a wedding gift. Roberto appeared, older, grayer, in prison orange, but somehow still commanding presence. "Congratulations, James," he said. Or should I say Michael Jr.? Everyone froze. Mary Josephine reached for the shotgun she kept behind the counter. "What do you want?" I asked. "To give a wedding gift. Check your account, Michael. The real one. The one you think I don't know about." James was already on his laptop. "Dad, there's $2 million. My father's legitimate money," Roberto explained. "From before the crime, before the blood. Consider it a wedding gift, and an apology. We don't want your money. It's not mine. It's your grandmother Francesca's. She left it for her grandchildren. I'm just the messenger." "Why?" Roberto looked tired. "Because I'm 58 years old, serving life without parole, and I just found out I have a granddaughter. Vincent's kid, he had a girl before he died in your basement. She's 3. Never met me, never will. But maybe someday someone will tell her that her family wasn't all bad, that once, at the end, we tried to make something right." The screen went dark. $2 million, Emma whispered. "Blood money," Diana said. "College funds," James corrected. "For our kids, for Thomas's music career, for Dad's trucking company expansion." "For running," I said. "That's always what money meant in our family, the ability to run." "Or the ability to stay," George suggested. "Money's just choices. What you choose makes it clean or dirty." Thomas stood up, raised his beer. Mary had let him have one, said if he was old enough to survive what we'd survived, he was old enough for a wedding beer. "To the Torino family," he said. "We're killers and rats, priests and convicts, liars and truth-tellers. We're everyone and no one. We're still standing." "Still standing," we echoed. Diana left after that, back to Seattle with her ex-priest husband. I didn't know if I'd see her again. Didn't know if I wanted to. But as I watched James and Emma dance, Thomas and his girlfriend Melody Harper singing together, George and Mary arguing about fishing techniques, Harold and Patricia comparing war stories, I realized something. This was my family now. Not blood, not law, but choice. We'd chosen each other through bullets and betrayal, through fake names and real feelings. "Dad," James said, appearing beside me. "Thank you." "For what?" "For keeping us alive long enough to get here." "That was mostly luck." "No, it was you. Every paranoid check, every midnight move, every lie you told to keep us safe, it was all you." Emma joined us. wedding dress dirty from dancing, face bright with joy. Mr. Mitchell, Robert, or Michael, or Dad, eventually. She smiled. Dad, then. Eventually. We're pregnant. The world stopped. Started. Stopped again. What? 10 weeks. We wanted to be sure before we told anyone. A grandchild, a new generation, someone who'd be born free of our sins, our fake names, our running. Boy or girl? Girl. We're naming her Hope. Hope Torino, Hope Mitchell, Hope whatever comes next. Perfect, I said. That night, after everyone had gone home or to hotels, I sat by the fire with Thomas. James and Emma had left for their honeymoon, a week in Hawaii, paid for with Roberto's grandmother's money. You okay? Thomas asked. I'm going to be a grandfather. Weird, right? The weirdest. Mom seemed okay. She married a priest, Thomas. Ex-priest. And honestly, good for her. She found someone who understands sin and redemption. That's more than most get. You forgive her? I'm 18, Dad. I don't have enough years to carry that much anger. He pulled out the ring Salvatore had given us, worn now on a chain around his neck. You know what I realized? What? We're all just trying to survive our families. The Torinos, the Wilsons, the Thompsons, the Mitchells, every name is just another attempt to survive who we come from. And maybe that's okay. Maybe survival is enough. A text came through from an unknown number. The books are balanced. No more running. Enjoy your granddaughter. The commission, the ruling body of what was left of organized crime, giving us official permission to exist. It's over, I told Thomas. Really over. Nothing's ever over, Dad. It just becomes something else. He was right. Tomorrow, Diana would go back to Seattle with her priest. James would be in Hawaii making more grandchildren. Thomas would play guitar in coffee shops, singing about a family that couldn't be explained. And me, Robert Mitchell, David Thompson, Clark Wilson, Michael Torino, I'd be here, in Alaska, watching the mountains and waiting for Hope to be born. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. Sometimes it's just living long enough to see something beautiful grow from all that blood-soaked soil. Chapter 12. Alaska, August 2025. Hope Mitchell was 4 months old when Salvatore's prophecy came true. Not the dying part, he'd been right about that, passing quietly 2 years ago. But his other prediction, that there's always another cousin, another soldier, another generation raised on stories of betrayal. The man standing in my driveway at 3 a.m. wasn't Salvatore, wasn't Roberto, wasn't anyone I recognized. But he had the Torino nose, the Torino stance, the Torino way of smiling like violence was a punchline only he understood. Uncle Michael? He said. I'm Vincent's son, Salvatore Vincent Torino Jr. Everyone calls me Sal. Vincent's son. My cousin who I'd shot in my Nebraska basement had a son. Roberto had mentioned a daughter but never a son. Vincent didn't have a son. Not officially. But here I am. He was young, maybe 25, with eyes that hadn't learned to be cruel yet. I'm not here for revenge. Then why? To meet family, to understand, to maybe stop this cycle before it eats another generation. I kept the Glock pointed at him. How'd you find us? I didn't. You found me. I've been living in Anchorage for 3 years working construction. Saw you at the grocery store last month. Recognized you from old photos. Took me this long to work up the courage. You've been here 3 years. Since I turned 18. Wanted to get away from New Jersey, from the family, from all of it. Alaska seemed far enough. It usually is. Thomas appeared on the porch, guitar in one hand, baseball bat in the other. Dad? It's okay. Maybe. Sal, this is my son Thomas. The musician. I've been to your shows. You're good. You've been stalking us? Appreciating. There's a difference. I lowered the gun but didn't put it away. Come inside. Slowly. In my kitchen, Sal looked younger. Scared even. Nothing like his father or Roberto or any of the others who'd worn violence like cologne. Why now? I asked. Because Hope was born. Because I have a sister, half-sister who Roberto told you about. Her name's Grace. She's 5, and I don't want her growing up with blood feuds and vendettas. He pulled out a photo. A little girl. Vincent's eyes, but smiling. Her mom doesn't know who I really am. Thinks I'm just Sally from work. But if this continues, if the cycle keeps going, one day someone will come for her, or Hope, or the next generation. So what do you want? To end it, publicly, finally. James walked in carrying Hope, who was crying. 4 months old and already ruling the house. Emma followed, looking exhausted but alert. Company? James asked, passing Hope to me. She settled immediately like she knew Grandpa meant safety. Family, I corrected. Sal, Vincent's son. Emma's hand went to her pocket where I knew she kept Mace. James's hand went to his laptop, probably already running facial recognition. He comes in peace, I added. They all say that, Emma muttered. Sal looked at Hope. She's beautiful. Looks like her grandmother. Which one? She has several. Angela. I've seen pictures. Angela. My first wife, dead 15 years, but still haunting every family gathering. You knew Angela. No, but Roberto talks about her. Says she was the only pure thing any Torino ever touched. Roberto says a lot of things. He's dying, you know. Liver cancer. Has maybe a year. Another dying Torino. They were becoming a pattern. What's your plan? Thomas asked. This ending you mentioned? Sal pulled out a document. A peace treaty. Formal, legal, binding. Signed by every surviving Torino, renouncing any claim to revenge, any blood debt, any continuing vendetta. That's not how the family works. The family doesn't work anymore. There's 12 of us left, scattered across the country. Most using different names. We're done, Uncle Michael. The Torino crime family died when you testified. We're just people now. People with history. Everyone has history. The question is whether we let it define our future. Hope gurgled in my arms, tiny fingers wrapping around my thumb. Her future didn't include running, hiding, fake names. James and Emma had insisted on that she'd be Hope Mitchell, publicly, proudly, permanently. Who else would sign this? I asked. I've got 8 signatures already. Roberto will sign he's got nothing left to lose. The cousins in Florida, California, they just want to live their lives. And if someone doesn't sign, then we know who to watch. Smart kid, strategic. Maybe there was hope for the next generation after all. I'll think about it. That's all I ask. He stood to leave, then stopped. There's a family reunion next month. Not Torino Mitchell, your mother's side. My mother's been dead for 35 years, but her family isn't. The Morettis, they know who you are, what you did. They want to meet you, meet your sons, meet Hope. Why? Because family isn't just the criminals we're related to. It's also the good people we forgot about. After he left, we sat around the kitchen table. Me, James, Emma, Thomas. George was asleep upstairs, had been living with us since his heart attack 6 months ago. Mary Josephine would come by in the morning with fresh bread and unsolicited advice. You gonna sign it? Thomas asked. Maybe. You gonna go to the reunion? Definitely not. Dad, James said, we can't live in fear forever. We're not living in fear, we're living in caution. Same thing, different vocabulary. Emma stood, taking Hope from me. I'm taking her to bed, but Robert Michael, whatever you should know something. I'm pregnant again. Another grandchild, another hostage to fortune. Boy or girl? Boy, we're naming him Michael. After all of them, Michael Torino, Michael Thompson, Michael the Archangel, all the Michaels who fought to keep us safe. After they went to bed, Thomas and I sat on the porch watching the sun not quite set Alaska in August, where night was just a suggestion. You hear from Mom? He asked. She sends postcards. Saying what? Nothing. Just the word, grateful. Weird. Your mother was always weird. We just didn't notice because we were too busy lying. You think she's happy? With the priest? I think she's trying. Same as us. A car pulled up. Patricia Stone, because apparently tonight was reunion night. Boys, she said, joining us on the porch, heard you had a visitor. News travels. It's Alaska. News doesn't travel, it teleports. She pulled out a flask, passed it around. Roberto's dead. What? Sal said he had a year killed in prison. Not revenge, wrong place, wrong time. Riot over food, believe it or not. stabbed with a sharpened spoon defending another inmate. Roberto Torino, who'd orchestrated elaborate revenge plots and million-dollar frauds, killed by a spoon in a fight over mystery meat. That's anticlimactic. Most deaths are. He left something for you. She handed me an envelope. Inside, a single photo, Roberto and me, 8 years old, at the Jersey Shore, building sandcastles, smiling before we knew what we'd become. On the back, "We were brothers once. Maybe that's enough. R." "Jesus," Thomas whispered. "Yeah." We drank Patricia's whiskey and watched the mountains change colors. Somewhere, Diana was sending postcards. Sal was planning peace treaties. Hope was dreaming baby dreams. New Michael was growing in Emma's belly. "What now?" Thomas asked. "Now we live," Patricia said. Openly, honestly. No more witness protection, no more running. You're the Mitchells of Alaska, business owners, musicians, parents, grandparents, normal people. We'll never be normal. No, but you can be free. Free. The word sat there like a gift we didn't know how to unwrap. My phone rang. Unknown number. "Mr. Mitchell? This is Sandra Collins from the Times. I'm writing a book about the Torino trials. I was wondering." I hung up. "Reporter?" Thomas asked. "Yeah. You gonna talk to her?" "No, our story isn't for sale." "But it's a hell of a story. The best ones usually are." George came out, moving slow but steady. "Can't sleep with all this yakking." "Sorry. Don't be. Family's supposed to be noisy." He settled into a chair. "So, Roberto's dead?" "Yeah." "Good. Now maybe we can all stop looking over our shoulders." But even as he said it, I checked the tree line, the driveway, the shadows, old habits. "Dad," Thomas said, "it's over." "Is it?" "Roberto's dead. The family's scattered. We have a peace treaty to sign." "Yeah, it's over." Maybe he was right. Maybe it was time to stop being Michael Torino running from ghosts and start being Robert Mitchell, grandfather, business owner, survivor. "Okay," I said. "It's over." 5 years later, August 2030. The letter came on a Tuesday because life-changing mail always comes on Tuesdays. "Dad," Hope said, 5 years old and reading already because Emma insisted, "this has your other name on it." Michael Torino, a name no one had used in years. Inside, an invitation, the Moretti family reunion, my mother's family, the one Sal had mentioned 5 years ago. "You going?" James asked. He was 30 now, successful, running a tech security company with Emma. Little Michael was 4, Hope was 5, and baby Angela. "Yes, we named her after my first wife was 2. Maybe. Mom will be there," Thomas said. He'd stayed in touch with Diana, the only one who did. She's technically a Moretti by marriage. Still married to the priest? Ex-priest. And yeah, they're happy. Happy. Diana was happy. I was. Something. Content, maybe. Surrounded by family. Running a successful trucking company. 62 years old and finally tired of running from anything. I'll go, I decided. The reunion was in Atlantic City, because irony has a sense of humor. The same city where Diana had created her dating profile 20 years ago, where this whole story maybe started, or maybe ended, or maybe both. She was there, older, grayer, but smiling real smiles. Father Michael beside her, looking like a man who'd found God outside the church. "Hello, Michael," she said. "Diana, it's good to see you. You look settled. You look happy." "I am. Are you?" I thought about it. Really thought about it. "Yeah, I think I am." We didn't hug. Didn't need to. Some bridges, once burned, make better monuments than pathways. "Hope looks like you," she said, watching my granddaughter play with other kids she'd just met. "She has Angela's eyes. And your survival instinct. James says she already knows 3 escape routes from every room. Smart kid. Smart grandfather." The Morettis welcomed me like the prodigal son I was. They knew my story, everyone did. After Sandra Collins published her book, but they didn't care. I was Francesca's son, their blood, their family. "You did what you had to do," my cousin Tony Moretti said. "We all got our sins. Yours are just more public." That night, there was a talent show. Thomas played guitar, Hope sang, little Michael told jokes he didn't understand. Normal family stuff. if you ignored the security guards and the fact that half of us were using fake names. Sal was there, the peace treaty framed and hanging in the hotel lobby. The Torino Armistice, he called it. Every signature accounted for, every vendetta officially ended. We did it, he said. Broke the cycle. For now. Forever, if we're careful. George Patterson died that winter, peaceful in his sleep. We scattered his ashes in the Bering Sea because he said he wanted to be where the fish are. Mary Josephine passed the next spring, leaving her recipe for fry bread and a note. Take care of each other. It's all that matters. Harold Kim still sends Christmas cards from Nebraska. Patricia Stone teaches at Portland State, uses our story as a case study in survival. James and Emma had 2 more kids, twins named George and Mary, because we honor our dead by naming our living. Thomas married Melody Harper in a ceremony Diana attended with her priest husband. And me? I'm Robert Mitchell, owner of Mitchell Trucking. I'm Michael Torino, last of the testifying rats. I'm David Thompson, Clark Wilson, and a dozen other names I wore like armor. But mostly I'm Grandpa. Hope and little Michael and Angela and the twins, they don't know the whole story. Someday they will, when they're old enough to understand that survival sometimes requires becoming someone else. For now, they just know that Grandpa checks locks 3 times, always sits facing the door, and tells the best bedtime stories about families that seem completely made up, but somehow feel true. Tell us about the time everyone had different names, Hope asks. Well, I begin, settling into my chair. Once upon a time, there was a family that had to keep changing who they were. Why? Little Michael interrupts. To stay safe. From what? From the consequences of truth. That doesn't make sense, Grandpa. No, I agree, looking at my grandchildren, my salvation, my reason for every lie and truth I've told. It doesn't, but it's how we survived, and survival, little ones, is the first chapter of every love story. They don't understand. Not yet, but they will, because they're Torinos, Mitchells, Thompsons, Wilsons. They're everyone and no one. They're the children of witnesses, protected by the truth that sometimes the best way to honor your family is to betray it. The best way to love someone is to lie to them. The best way to survive is to die and be reborn as someone else. It's complicated, contradictory, true, just like family, just like us. End of part 3. End of the protected witness. In Alaska, the mountains remain unchanged. The aurora borealis still dances green and gold across the sky. Mitchell Trucking runs 3 routes a week to Fairbanks. And somewhere, in a filing cabinet in Washington, D.C., there's a file marked Wilson Clark Closed. But stories like ours never really close. They just wait for the next generation to open them, read them, and decide what parts to keep, what parts to bury, and what parts to transform into something new. Something better. Something free. This story fundamentally challenges our understanding of betrayal. Diana's emotional affair seems almost innocent compared to a decade of identity deception, yet both were acts of desperate people trying to survive their suffocating realities. What strikes me most is how the Witness Protection Program saved their lives while simultaneously destroying their marriage, proving that safety and happiness rarely coexist for families hiding from their past. The real tragedy isn't that Diana fell for Roberto's manipulation, but that she was so starved for authentic connection that she couldn't recognize a predator studying her every word, making me wonder if true intimacy is even possible when your entire life is built on necessary lies.